Ladies and gentlemen, colleagues and friends, welcome to the final day of Sweden Innovation Days, Sweden's biggest innovation event of the year. The conference has brought together participants from all over the world to share experiences and innovative ideas for reaching the Sustainable Development Goals. We all know that climate change is the most pressing challenge of our time. We all know that we must move from words to action if we are to fulfill our commitments under the Paris Agreement. And we all know that embracing innovation is the best way to do so. Sweden has the ambition to become a fossil-free nation by 2045, and the government firmly believes that this cannot be achieved by one party only. We need cooperation between communities, governments, industry and academia, using innovation and dialogue as our primary tools. Sweden is in the middle of a green industrial revolution with innovations that create a real impact on our society. Two examples are fossil-free steel and green batteries from northern Sweden. This will not only enable the green transition for many sectors, but it will also create jobs and economic opportunities for an entire region. Today, you will hear many other examples of Swedish innovations and the opportunities they bring to the world. Sharing best practices and forming new partnerships in forums such as this is necessary to fulfill our commitments under the Paris Agreement. We must join forces to enable the innovations that will relieve future generations of the burdens associated with climate change. Once again, welcome to the final day of Sweden Innovation Days. I wish you an inspiring day with fruitful discussions that will spark the innovations of tomorrow. Thank you.
Welcome to day 3 of Sweden Innovation Days. You heard our minister. Let us relieve future generations of the burdens associated with climate change. And as we get ready to launch the last day of our 3-day innovation bonanza, I hope you feel energized and inspired. My guess is that you also harbor a conflicting set of emotions: worry, a sense of urgency, overwhelmed by complexity and conflicting goals. You are in good company, and we are here to address just that, the duality of reality. We know where we're heading. The IPC has yet again reminded us that the small window of opportunity is closing. The planet is at 1.1 degrees warmer, and we need to peak fossil emissions by 2025. As we discuss how to create real impact, we move from fancy statements and visions far into the future to the here and now. That requires our full attention, a comprehensive grasp of pros and cons, addressing bottlenecks, inequalities, daily realities. This is day 3, and I'd like to welcome this day with Joakim Skog, who is the strategic lead Future Innovations at Vinnova. You will join us yet again today to comment, shed light, and highlight.
Hopefully so, yes.
What do you look forward to today?
Ooh, we have a lot of focus on democracy today, I think. We have interesting speakers this upcoming hour, and we also have a panel on the future of democracy that I'm particularly looking forward to.
Let's unpick the title, Real Impact. What does that mean?
Well, impact that makes a difference, I'd say. Something that really makes an effect where it needed the most.
Which implies that there is some sort of unreal impact, and fancy titles allows this whole greenwashing, Greta's blah, blah, blah.
No, sure. In the innovation business, we often talk about the innovation theater. That's when you just play around with the innovation and we don't really mean it. So we need to make sure that we all understand where the acupuncture points are and make sure that we address them.
And hopefully that's the agenda and the mission for today.
It is.
Let's go. And as always, we will start with you, Joakim. And your session is called What If? A scenario of possible futures, in order for us to address actions today, the real impact of today, we need to have a grasp of potential outcomes. Dystopian, some sort of in the middle, the lagom, and visions of a mitigated future where we live within our planetary boundaries. You've had 2 days of lessons, so I hope to learn something more. You implied yesterday that I will receive with some leave with some sort of diploma.
I hope so, and the rest of you guys that have been following us these 3 days as well.
So, what is on the agenda on the what if?
Well, let's start with immersing ourselves into a possible future. The future cannot be predicted, but we can immerse ourselves in stories from the future, about the futures. Stories built on facts, evidence, and signals we see around us today. And combining that with some creativity and fiction, we create these alternative futures in order to gain new insights that could show us and lead the way towards a new, more sustainable future. So today I'm inviting you all to have a look into one of these futures. We're going to the future of fashion with a product demo from the future. Please roll the tape.
Introducing the latest in health fashion, the graphene garment. A garment made entirely of graphene, built and designed to last from generation to generation. Something that makes it tough and durable on the outside, and at the same time soft and kind to you and nature. The garment's high-tech material keeps your body at just the ideal temperature in conditions of -50 to +50 degrees centigrade. It protects you against a UV index of 20 and above. Of course, it's waterproof, keeping you afloat in flash floods. The graphene garment's puncture-free material is pierce and bulletproof, making it the obvious choice when it comes to personal protective equipment. But the benefits don't end there. The graphene garment also functions as a health indicator. Built-in sensors can immediately detect diseases. Great, then you don't have to worry about how you're feeling. The graphene garment does it for you. But it doesn't just monitor how you're feeling, it also helps you feel better. So when you're feeling down, the garment will give you a much-needed hug. The garment is also traceable according to ISO 10000. See the entire production chain and the minimal climate footprint. Invest safely in garments of the future. Exchange your green credits and start subscribing to the graphene garment. Let the garment be part of your life today and for generations to come.
So, how does that make you feel? That future, could you envision yourself in that future? What did you see in this product demo that resonated with you? Something that stood out? What kind of world would we be living in if we need clothes that keep the same clothes keeps us warm as well as cold when the extreme weather hits us, and it's also bulletproof? What does that tell you about the future? So we have a chat in the stage area. There's a chat where I invite you all to just say hello to your fellow viewers and also share whatever feelings this product demo gave you. Yesterday we had quite a good traffic in the chat about the baby builder, and I would like to see what you guys think about this today. What do you think?
I loved it, and I think it's one of those brilliant product demos. I mean, I work as an investor, so I see quite a lot of product demos, and this caters to some sort of a vision of the future, an adventure, but also elegantly hits those fear points. Like, what are you afraid of, and why would you buy something like this? And as a hobby prepper and a hobby biohacker, I thought this was genius.
So you'd like to invest in this company, perhaps? Technology?
Definitely. And I think we were laughing while we were watching the film as well. This whole, and then the garment can give you a hug, has again encapsulated everything that we're afraid of. I'm going to be alone and cold in an area where bullets pass my head. No.
And due to the clothing, you cannot really give another human being a hug. So you need that from the garment.
Yeah.
The garment of graphene, and graphene is a super material that's we know. I mean, it's available and it can do all of these things. So it's not a totally fictitious future. It's actually, this could happen. The question is, what kind of world are we living in when these kinds of garments is needed? And that's what I'd like to hear from you guys as well. And this is an example as well of speculative design. It's a possible future that you experience in some way. It could be through a video like this, or it could be an artifact, a physical artifact visiting from the future in the present that makes you feel something. And those feelings and those insights we'd like to turn into new ways of thinking about how to avoid, or rather go in the direction of the future that you'd actually want. So that's speculative design. We've been experimenting with speculative design at Vinnova. There's been a call called Prototypes from the Future. If you're interested in this, check it out. It's we have a blog where everything can be. You can see what kind of projects we funded there. So, speaking of becoming a futurist, are you ready for your third and final lesson?
I am very excited.
So, day one, we talked about signals, how to collect signals, because the future is already here. It's just unevenly distributed, as William Gibson is said to be. Well, it's a
you
quote.
never know who says what.
Exactly. But let's say it's a quote from William Gibson. So the future is already here. We just have to look around for those weak signals.
Minus filter bubble.
Yes, exactly. I'll get to that, how to avoid that filter bubble. And you combine these signals, these weak signals, you read between the lines, and you look around you in being just outside or whatever. You combine these with the long-term trends, the driving forces like climate change or aging population and things like that. And with those ingredients, you create possible futures. That was day one, the lesson one. Yesterday we talked about looking back to look forward. It's sometimes when you think about the future, it seems like impossible to change stuff. You cannot really make a change, and it feels like there's all of these hurdles. So what looking back to look forward is all about is that you just take a timeline and look at, the example yesterday was future of waste. Look at the Romans, how they handled waste, and look at how we handled waste in the 60s. Then you see that, I mean, there's been quite a progression since then, which makes it easier. It unlocks the ability to think more creativity about the future, as well as also seeing that there's trends during these 2,000 years, as well as, I mean, you can do this personally as well. You can see that you've grown up, being from 0 to X years, you've also made a progress, right?
Well, at Sumo, on a linear basis, you do make progress. I think that what could be questioned is your emotional maturity in that. There was someone that's saying that in the era of Trump, we are all grown-up kids, me, now. But I had a question on this linear development that I was thinking about after we turned off the cameras yesterday, which is there's also discussions about that life is in a pendulum, that we go back and forth between extremes, and then we tend to forget and pretend that life is linear.
Well, we often like to talk about, let's go back to how things were.
The good old days.
We don't do that. That never happens. Some we can see some similarities, of course, yes. So there's stuff to be learned from looking back, but the future is always a combination about from things we've learned in the past combined with new things. So it's a way for us to just think about the future that, the good old days, they were good, let's bring them back. It doesn't work like that. So, but it's, sure, it's a way of, you can still like pick interesting events from the past and combine that with future forecasts. So today, I'm just going to wrap it up with 5 principles, which I've borrowed from Marina Gorbis. She's the executive director at Institute for the Future, a partner to Vinnova that we exercise our future thinking skills together with Institute for the Future. So the first principle as a futurist is forget about predictions. Predictions, we don't have data on the future, so let's not try to predict it. We can exercise our future thinking skills, but we just have to understand that predictions is not what we're looking for. We're looking for becoming prepared for the future, and we become prepared by thinking in alternative futures. The second is what I've already mentioned, focus on signals and the driving forces. Third, look back to look forward. We also have learned that lesson. And then combining this into uncover the patterns, to see the bigger picture, zoom out and see what kind of pattern emerges when you look at the signals, driving forces, looking back to look forward. And finally, getting back to your building or avoiding the filter bubble, build your community. So make sure that you talk to others about the future. Talk about the signals that you see around you. Talk about the driving forces. Discuss your insights from looking back to look forward. So to get really practical, I'd advise you to just gather a few of your friends, colleagues, and set up a bi-weekly meeting. Have a signal hunting meeting where you discuss whatever signals you've seen. Because your subjective observation is of course, from your subjective perspective. Having a few friends or colleagues or just building that group of people to discuss these signals and the scenarios you see will make that go away a bit, or it will compensate a bit.
Oh, and you need to nuance your thinking when it hits someone else's ears anyway, so that's good. I mean, what I'm reading also is there's you need to be deliberate about the future, and there's something about emotional maturity here, which means that a sober awakening, we're not in a vacuum. Something is coming, and it is moving quite quickly. Yeah. And you need to be awake, deliberate, and then to use the buzzwords of this conference, you need to be co-creating in that, like active.
Yeah, and also realizing that the future is nothing that someone else creates for us. The future is something that we create. So this is a way of enabling you not being hit by the future shock, which is, it's really easy if you don't think about alternative futures and all of a sudden the future is here. All of a sudden ChatGPT 5 really hits the ground running and we didn't really know what hit us. Well, we should spend some time thinking about the developments within AI. We should spend some time thinking about the developments. What will society look like in 2035 when quantum computing is available to all? What happens? What kind of society will that be? And also, talking about quantum computing, we also need to get started today regarding regulatory and policy-making projects, because quantum computing can change a lot of things. So we better start thinking about them today. That's another power of immersing yourself in these alternative futures.
Is this the forum to move from quantum computing to quantum leaping and having a metaphysical discussion about alternative futures?
Now you put me on the spot. As I knew
we
you were going to do.
We will park it for 2024, when we will take quantum leaping to the next level. Yes. And be very deliberate about our future. But one of the things that I wanted to ask is, how do we address the growing subculture of people that take future predictions with a negative twist quite seriously? And I'm talking about conspiracy theorists that grouped together and have missed one of your points, which is the filter bubble aspect of what they're doing. Like, how do we address those types of futurists?
It is, I mean, what we would like to achieve with for instance, speculative design and talking about foresight is to have that dialogue. So we want to provoke feelings, provoke ideas about the future. We did have some of the, I mentioned that we have had a call within from Vinnova regarding prototypes from the future. We actually saw that some news about one of the prototypes took
a life on its own.
Yeah, exactly. And it was starting to be discussed in different forums and such, which was great, but which was what we wanted. But on the same, I mean, we weren't really there to facilitate the dialogue. So from my point of view, I'd like to be really close to the dialogue and make sure that we have, like we have in the chat right now, I'm hoping that we have some insights in the chat that you're sharing with us. And after this, I'd like to go in and reply to those, because we need to have also a balanced dialogue regarding that. So it's hard when it comes, like, I'm disconnected with the dialogue, which is also a balance being a governmental agency in how much can we provoke and how much are we willing to let go of that control. It's not easy.
Before it became a governmental role to do speculative design, which is a new word, so to speak, this was called science fiction, and it was done in the realm of culture, which has always been there to provoke and create a conversation about an alternative future. And one of the more interesting books that I've read in a long while was Ministry of the Future, which I can recommend anyone that's interested in what could a potential climate scenario look like.
Scary.
Very scary.
Yeah.
But I think that we've been talking about breaking silos. There's a collaboration with the science fiction community, the film community, what we see on Netflix, that helps us emotionally think about different types of scenarios.
What we would like to do I mean, take the next step from the insights, from the experiences of the speculative design, is to go to action, to make your strategies and make a change. So that's really, and I had a conversation the other week with Bani Banerjee at Stanford University about systems thinking, and that
the speaker, yes, last year.
He was?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So that's part of the equation, I think, that we really need to go to work, that it's not an art installation. It's not only science fiction. We should really convert the insights and feelings towards something that makes a change. So that's really important for me today. So with those 5 principles, if you just remember those 5 principles, forget about predictions, work on trying to discover the signals around you, look back to look forward, uncover the patterns and build your community, I'd say that you have your diploma. And to add to that, today we have we already mentioned that we will talk about the future of democracy, and we'll have other topics that borders on that. So I have a Menti question for you guys that I'd like to have for you to have in the back of your mind during the day. And I'd like to hear from you, what do you think democracy will be in 2035? What's the future of democracy and how will it turn out? What kind of future do you envision when it comes to democracy? So looking forward to your answers in the Menti that's shown on the screen, and it will be available in the platform for the rest of the evening.
So one of your points was not to predict, and now you would like us to predict a little. Is that how you...
Well, I'd like you to envision.
Envision.
Not predict, but rather what's a future of democracy.
And not go doomsday necessarily.
Doesn't have to be a doomsday. It could be dystopic, it could be utopian, or something mittemellan.
Mittemellan, lagom. Well, I really look forward to seeing that based on all the conversations that we have today.
Yes, me too. So,
an afternoon filled with creating real impact. Thank you, Joakim.
Thank you.
What if will continue at 16:45, and now we are going to move topic. It has been mentioned a few times over the last few days. Sweden outranks the rest of Europe in the European Innovation Scoreboard. The scoreboard helps countries assess the relative strength and weakness of their national innovation systems and identity, and challenges their needs that needs to be addressed. To help us make sense of this scoreboard and to navigate how to best use the ranking, I'd like to welcome Alexander Hopsa, who's head of unit, chief economist at the European Commission. Alexander, welcome. Talk to us about these rankings.
Good afternoon, and many thanks for the kind invitation and also the possibility to speak about the innovation performance of EU countries. But indeed, before I will go there, I would like to explain a little bit about our scoreboard, what it is, how it can be used, and also what are its limitations. So I've prepared a couple of slides. So now let me start with the scoreboard. The European Innovation Scoreboard has been around for some 20 years, so it's a product with a long history. It's quite popular. You've mentioned the references to the scoreboard, and it has quite a bit of impact. As you mentioned, it is a comparative assessment of where countries stay with their research and innovation performance. And it also helps them to assess their weaknesses and strengths. But here I have to stress, and then I'll get to it in a second, it is based on indicators, which means it has very powerful nature. It shows figures where countries stand vis-a-vis the EU average, where you can compare how they are doing. At the same time, once you're building on quantitative information, there are limitations. Indicators don't tell you everything, and if you want to have proper assessment of where countries stand, you obviously have to complement it with maybe more indicators, but also very importantly by qualitative information. Now, the innovation scoreboard, the European Innovation Scoreboard, doesn't come alone. In the European scoreboard, we're looking at countries in Europe, but also in neighborhood and also main competitors in the world. But we also have a regional scoreboard, which covers around 240 regions and provides more nuanced picture. Obviously, this comes a little bit at cost because we do not have all the indicators that we have for the European Innovation Scoreboard, and that's why we have to rely on a narrower set of indicators. Now, just to give you a little bit overview of what we are talking about. So we are covering 4 main groups of aspects that somehow are representative of innovation performance of countries. Under these 4 main groups, we look at 12 dimensions, and overall we have 32 indicators. When I was talking about the regional scoreboard, there we're using only 26 indicators because information on the remaining ones is not comparable, for example, so we have to do with less. In these 4 main groups, we're looking at issues like framework conditions for companies to engage in innovative activities. And there we're looking at issues like human resource availability, degree of digitalization. We look at investments, both in terms of support from countries, from governments, but also investments at the level of firms. We look at innovation activities, where we try to see how innovative companies are in terms of product innovations or business process innovations. Very important aspect is the linkages between different actors within the innovation ecosystems, but also on the production of innovation by looking at intellectual assets such as patents or trademarks. But last but not least, we are looking also at impacts, like how innovation is translating into employment, sales, or also what role environmental sustainability is playing. Now, here you see the main results of the 2022 European Innovation Survey or Scoreboard. Here we've split countries into 4 groups. This is done for better overview or understandability of the results. We have the best performers, which we call innovation leaders. We have strong innovators, moderate innovators, and emerging innovators. I've mentioned at the beginning already that countries are compared relatively to the EU average. So all these groups are defined in comparison to the EU average. And now what is quite striking about this graph is how countries are split also in geographical sense. So we see the best performers, innovation leaders and strong innovators in Northern Europe and in Central Europe. And you've mentioned it already, Sweden tops the ranking. And moderate innovators and emerging innovators are more concentrated in Southern Europe and also in Central and Eastern Europe. In this graph, you see more details for each and every country. And there you can see that in particular for emerging innovators and moderate innovators, there is still quite a lot of heterogeneity among countries. When you would ideally want those who are be less performing in terms of innovation to perform well and then catch up with those who are on the top. Now that you can see whether this is the case or not from this graph, which shows the changes over time. And there we can see that the best performer in terms of improvements between 2015 and 2022 is Cyprus, followed by Estonia, Greece, Lithuania, Czech Republic, and I must say I do not see the small print. Well, and Finland, right? Now, when you look at the colors of these bars, which are associated with the performance groups, what you would like to see in this graph is to be the countries in red, in dark red, to be on the right. So those which have relatively lower levels of innovation performance to experience big improvements. Unfortunately, this is not the case. We see that the countries which are improving more are those from either stronger innovation groups or also the moderate innovators. But between the emerging innovators, we see quite big differences, and then they tend to be located more on the left of the graph. So this is something which is of concern, and that we would or we should address through policies. Now, I have mentioned at the beginning that we are looking not only at this aggregate performance in terms of innovation, but we look also at the different dimensions. And here you can see who are the leaders in terms of the different dimensions. And you can see quite a lot of heterogeneity in these results. So out of the 12 dimensions that we've covered, there is 11 different member states which are best performer in one of them. The only exception here is Sweden, which actually performs best in 2 dimensions, and then specifically human resources and also employment impacts. For all the other dimensions, we can see different leaders ranking from different groups of innovation performance. So we have a strong innovator, Luxembourg, which is providing very attractive research systems. We see Greece, which is a moderate innovator, but is quite well performing in terms of innovators. Right? We have Ireland, for example, which is ranking first in terms of sales impacts. So this is a positive message. Now, I've mentioned at the beginning, we do not cover only European or the European Union countries, but also we look at the neighborhood and also global competitors. This is obviously very important when we're talking about innovation performance. And what we can see is that the EU is lagging behind in terms of innovation performance after a number of global competitors. The country which performs best in our scoreboard is South Korea, followed by Canada, US, Australia, and EU comes only after. On the positive side, the improvements in EU performance over past 8 years have been quite substantial. So the EU on average improved by some 10%, and this pace of improvement is faster than in most of our world competitors, with the exception of China. So as a result of that, we have closed part of the performance gap vis-a-vis, for example, South Korea or the US. And we actually, in terms of level, we have gotten ahead of Japan. right? But there is still quite a bit of scope for improvement. Now let me use my last couple of minutes to look at the situation in Sweden. I've already mentioned that Sweden tops our ladder of innovators. It's more than 135% of the EU average. And also the change, its performance has been pretty fast. Also some 10%, slightly or marginally faster than the EU. But what is even more interesting is to look at the different dimensions where Sweden performs well and then where it performs relatively less well. So in terms of relative strengths of the Swedish economy, we see that Sweden is very strong in terms of indicators relating to cooperation. Right, so public-private co-publications or international scientific co-publications are a real strength of Sweden. Also in terms of lifelong learning, employing ICT specialists, and also in terms of the share of high doctorate, foreign doctorate students. In terms of weaknesses, Sweden is doing relatively, and here I should stress the word relatively, less well, because when you look at the levels also of these indicators, they are only slightly below EU average. So this is something which perhaps Sweden wants to look at, but also in absolute performance, these indicators are certainly not that bad. These relate to job mobility of human resources in science and technology, resource productivity, government support for business R&D, non-R&D innovation expenditures, and also exports of medium and high-tech goods. But let me finish by stressing that this is based really on how different indicators that are included in our scoreboard, how they evolve. And in order to get a proper appreciation of the situation, additional insights are needed. And I believe that this will be the contribution of the next speaker.
Thank you for sharing that. A lot of interesting stats to unpack, but I will let our Deputy Director of the Swedish Ministry of Climate and Enterprise, Marie Wall, to first comment from the Swedish government side. Välkommen, Marie.
Thank you. Thank you. And we are happy to really, we know that we are really strong education innovation leader in Sweden. And but we can't relax, because we can't take this for granted, because as you showed, the competition is getting tougher, and there are others that are really moving ahead fast to increase their innovation leadership and innovations, the position in the innovation scoreboard. But what is the foundation for this success? I would say that the thing that we believe are the strongest foundation for success is our educated workforce. We have put a lot of emphasis on the lifelong learning, and even recently we have introduced new ways to stimulate the continuous learning among people, where individuals can really get a large percentage of their current salaries if they take a year off to refresh and reskill themselves. We are also actually quite attractive to international talent, even if we don't have a very active policies around this. And that is the sustainability profile of most of our companies, that they really want to do something for society. They want to contribute to society that attracts international talent from all over Europe, actually, but from the rest of the world. And we also have a very interesting and very crucial competence mix, both within research, within tech, within management, due to our larger corporates, and also within design, that creates the foundation for innovation. And the larger corporates that I was talking about, that have contributed not only with R&D and leadership skills, they have also fostered an engineering tradition in Sweden that is really crucial when it comes to the culture. Other thing in the culture are matters of trust. We have a tendency to trust each other very well between different companies, and we even trust our public sector very much. So, and that is a good foundation for the secret sauce and for the main ingredients for our competition. That really makes Sweden an innovation leader, and that is the collaboration. we are really, really good at collaborating between startups and large companies, between academia and companies as well. And you can see that in your scoreboard, because we have a strong position when it comes to co-publication in R&D between public and private, and that is due to this collaboration tradition. But given this, we can't just relax, because we can't just look at Sweden. We are a quite small country still in Europe. We need to understand that we are part of the European Union, and we need also we rely very, very much on the policies and the regulations and all the financing for innovation that exists in the European Union. Agendas such like the new European Innovation Agenda and the Action Plan on Intellectual Properties are really important for us. But for those agendas to have an effect, they need to be implemented. And Sweden now holds the presidency, and during this presidency we will actually host a conference and workshop on deep tech entrepreneurship. The conference goes under the name Deep Tech Entrepreneurship for an Innovative, Resilient and Competitive Internal Market. And we host this conference together with EIC, European Innovation Council. And the goal with this conference is really to co-implement around those agendas, around the new EU Innovation Agenda, around the Action Plan on Intellectual Properties, and do co-create and co-implement the different initiatives in this agenda together with the rest of EU. Because I think that if there's something that we can improve from in Sweden, is that we can really be better taking our collaboration culture out and collaborate not only within Sweden, but also with our peers in the rest of Europe. So I invite you all, if you're interested, so keep in touch and keep your eyes open for this conference, and because the invitations will be sent out within a couple of weeks.
Thank you. Always use an engaged audience as an opportunity to sell. And I think one of the things that I'd like to discuss on this ranking, because we've been discussing or mentioning the fact that Sweden's on top of the ranking. And I'm going to start by channeling my inner cynic to you, Alexander. Why do we need this type of ranking? Why is it useful? How can we use it as a tool to implement change and not just be self-congratulatory?
I've mentioned already at the beginning that our ranking has received quite a lot of attention. So it really witnesses to its potential usefulness to member states, well, governments, but also for private sector. They do pay attention to these figures, despite all their limitations, which I've mentioned at the beginning. So I think this is very important, and it provides us with material to discuss on, right? Clearly, looking at individual indicators gives you just certain kind of direction or indication, and eventually, when you go deeper and then look at all the evidence that is out there, that maybe some of these signals may not be that strong, but it can also lead you in the right direction and then point to real weaknesses in the innovation system, and that's why I think using indicators which are based on good data, which are comparable, is an excellent starting point for this type of discussions. And then from our experience, it does work.
So could you share with us slightly what the format and the structure looks like to address those needs? How do you measure that? How do you put timelines on that type of real impact?
Well, when we publish the results, we do discuss with member states, and also we have a number of outreach meetings and exchanges with other interesting stakeholders. And on that basis, we try to identify what are the real weaknesses in innovation systems, which then may be reflected in the reform agenda, for example, as part of the European semester process, which the EU is running.
Thank you for clarifying. And if I seem unnecessarily critical, it's also because sometimes the EU feels far away, and it's important to clarify how does that work for real. So allowing a sense of action behind reports and statistics. And it's also because, and I think one of the things that we've discussed here in the studio is innovation in itself can be vague. How do you measure it? How does it, is it a tangible way to make it concrete? And Joakim, one of the things that I was wondering about for you is, how do you work with a snapshot of today, which a ranking like this ultimately is, as a futurist?
Oh, as a futurist, well, I can see that, first of all, I'll get back to that question, but I'm curious about some of the indicators I'd like to add to your survey. So this is a signal, of course, and you can have a look at countries that are lagging behind to see what are they doing, and also to see where we, Sweden, for instance, where we are growing, and also try to track that back to what kind of activities could we trace that performance back to. So using the data and trying to figure out what's behind it, that's how I'd approach it. I'm just going to take the opportunity here to ask you about an often regarded superpower when it comes to innovation is diversity. It could be gender diversity, but diversity at large. Have you considered those kinds of metrics in the survey?
Well, Lily, since we're a little bit constrained by taking as simple approach as possible, and what I've showed to you at the beginning, we have a list of indicators, and we compare in a relatively simple or linear way. Now, so diversity as such is not directly embedded in the measurement, but it's more in the results. And then I've shown one slide where you could see how countries perform in terms of different dimensions of innovation. And I think this is really where the diversity is captured, and we do cherish it. I've mentioned it's really great to see that the different countries in the EU are performing well in terms of different dimensions. So there is a lot of potential to learn from one another.
This is innovation ranking. We should see this as some sort of open workshop in how we can improve the ranking. Because I have an additional question in terms of the ranking, and that's both for you, Marie, and to you, Alexander, in Brussels. Because a ranking like this and the indicators that you've chosen, it's complex, and we know that, and Joakim had more suggestions. However, we are measuring the things that indicate a positive direction for innovation. Innovation is not in a vacuum. We're doing this for a reason. We're talking about Fit for 55, the Paris Agreement, our 2030, 2045, and 2050 goals. So it's not just innovation. And I was wondering, there are several activities within the European scope, not even the planetary scope, that are counter-active towards these goals that we're not measuring. And I'm thinking about maybe not setting a price on carbon or subsidies to the oil and gas industry. How do you see measuring these types of aspects in an innovation scoreboard like this?
I think there are limits to what one can capture. You always want to have something which is comprehensive and consistent. So that's why in our scoreboard, well, we actually are pretty broad. I mean, I've mentioned we were covering 32 indicators, including some of them related to the environmental aspects. So we do try to include these elements, but one has to also recognize that our scoreboard is just one part of the picture. There are many more policy initiatives, but also other analytical inputs. Just to mention that my team is producing also a much broader report, which is looking at science, innovation, and research performance in the EU, which covers some of these issues in much more in depth, and also providing the additional qualitative evidence, which I referred to at the beginning.
Marie, how do you feel about measuring, setting a price on carbon, internal price on carbon, and the things that are coming in the EU taxonomy, as well as subsidies for the oil and gas industry that are directly counterproductive to the innovation that we're trying to foster here today? How do you see that dance?
No, I have a tendency to agree with Alexander that we can't just capture all the parameters in the same scoreboard. This is just one piece of the puzzles, and there are other scoreboards, there are other work where we are looking into those issues. So I think that when we are looking and when we are reading those scoreboards, we have to understand what it is, and we can't just rely and say that this is the truth. We have to really question it as well. But I think that the beauty of this quite simplified scoreboards is that they are measured every year. So we really can see the improvement or the decline. So that we have a certain set of parameters that can really show how we develop. And then there are other ways we have to be more creative when we are really when we are translating this into policy.
So Joakim, for us, for next year, that means this segment of the conference should be both what are the positive actions that we're doing and what actions are countering the goals that we're doing and balance them out.
Absolutely.
Maybe you propose a new scoreboard.
We could propose a new scoreboard, but I think it's important to look at what is, because if you only highlight the good and you forget about things that are actually counterproductive, it becomes a naive conversation.
And I'm going to dig into this because I see that government support for R&D in Sweden, we're lagging a bit behind. So that's something to have a thorough look at.
Alexander, consider yourselves re-invited for next year, and we look forward to seeing how everyone has improved as well as the negative actions have been mitigated. Thank you, Alexander, and thank you, Marie, for joining us. And now we're going to move on. It's time for an impact startup from Ignite Sweden's matchmaking. Innovation in the making. I'd like to welcome Nature Compound and CEO Niklas Butler. Please, Niklas, share with us your innovation and what you're doing.
Yes, perfect. Thank you so much. My name is Niklas. I'm 32 years old and I founded Nature Compound 2 years ago. We currently have 10 people in our team and are located in Germany, close to Dortmund. In our organization, we believe in a sustainable world through tailor-made solutions for an oil-free plastic industry. We create individual and creative solutions in compounding and the marketing of the resulting products of our customers. Nature Compound offers biodegradable plastics made from renewable raw materials that can be processed and used on existing equipment. Today, our products are used in different industries, such as cosmetics, packaging, food and beverage, automotive, or sports. We are really looking forward to moving into our new home. This year, we will do research and development and are able to produce more than 10,000 tons of sustainable compounds per year. Thank you so much.
Thank you for that, Niklas. There are, obvious industries, and you mentioned a few, but from your wish list, which are the industries that you think are the most important that they address their plastics?
So when we break it down to especially biodegradable plastics, I should mention the packaging industry, because especially the packaging industries is polluting, especially the seas, due to their different packaging forms, and therefore we need to have biodegradable options in order not to make everything, let's say, bring it into a reusable circle, but there are products which are not recyclable, and therefore the packaging industry is really a huge target for us.
Could you briefly address the Bill Gates terminology, the green premium? Is your product more expensive than traditional oil-based plastics?
Definitely, yeah. We are not talking about 10 times or 5 times the higher the price, but when you just break it down of 1 kilogram compound for injection molding, it's like doubling the price. But this is still a fair price, what I think, yeah.
And does that mean that you need subsidies and policy help, or do you need clients that are more progressive, or do you just need time and R&D?
I think it can be either way. So basically, when we're talking about the new packaging agreement that was, I think, proposed in November last year, and when it comes down to, for instance, capsules, little plastic solutions where they then need to be compostable, and then the regulations definitely helps us. But there are other industries that are just pushing the products and try to substitute possibilities or plastics, conventional plastics, and it works either way.
Well, Niklas, we don't have time to sit here and chat. You've got work to do. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Look forward to seeing about and reading about your successes.
Thanks for having me. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye. we are now going to talk about measuring real impact. And as you heard before, we discussed measuring and rankings and real impact before. It is a cliche. If you can measure it, you can manage it. But it's a double-edged sword. Do we deprioritize what is hard to measure? In a world where financial returns need to share the limelight with planetary impact to mitigate the looming climate and biosphere catastrophe, how do you measure? What do you measure? Stating the obvious, as I mentioned before, negative externalities need a price. We need to set a price on carbon, and then we can measure away. This session will explore the different aspects of how we can create and measure the impact of sustainable growth, both in corporates and in startups. I would like to welcome Katarina Sandberg, who is CEO at Lead, an incubator in Östergötland. Helena Sjöström, co-driver of CIO CO2, tongue twister there. Lisa Reiler, owner of Reilers, head of sustainability at Magnolia Bostad as well. Lisa, tell us what you're working on and why is measuring such an important managing tool? There you are.
Should I?
Yeah. Yes.
So I believe that impact measurement can really help to create systemic, sustainable change. And it also drives value creation for an organization and generate greater credibility with stakeholders such as customers and investors. And I would say, I believe that there are different aspects on how you can measure real impact. And today I will just shortly describe 3 aspects that I believe is very important. Firstly, you can measure impact in line with your materiality analysis and your sustainability reporting, which will give a comprehensive picture of an organization's most significant impact areas. I mean, on the environment, on the economy, and also for people. And secondly, you can measure your collective impact, which is a way to actually accelerate the transformation to a sustainable society. It's through cooperation initiatives that makes it much more easier to reach sustainability global goals as well. And finally, you can measure real impact in shared value, which I believe is the most powerful way to create impact. And it's the double value creation, meaning sustainable growth and profit. And by developing these business strategies that deliver the tangible social benefits, you can actually create major new opportunities for both profit and competitive advantages. And at the same time, you will benefit society and also help to solve larger global problems like, for example, climate change. And as Mark Carney put it, the former governor of Bank of England, he says that firms that align their business models with the transition to the net zero carbon economy will be rewarded handsomely, and those that fail will actually cease to exist. So you can imagine the UN development goals as a smorgasbord of different business opportunities. So I believe that the way forward in integrating reporting for companies is to actually recognize the difference between what is measured to demonstrate your impact in line with ESG initiatives and to measure your value creation or capture value creation. It's 2 different ways of reporting. The first aspect, actually, to measure positive and negative impact according to your materiality analysis also demands the best method to calculate your impact. And the concept materiality arrives from reviewing which topics are the most important and relevant for the business itself and also for all the stakeholders that you have in the company. So to avoid greenwashing, you also need to measure your progress within these impact areas in order to make it real. So, for example, as an urban and housing developer, Magnolia Bostad, where I'm head of sustainability, has an important role in the transition to a sustainable future. And the company's science-based target is in line with the Paris Agreement and also with the climate cooperations that we have in the industry, which are all striving to a climate-neutral property and housing sector in 2030. And Magnolia Bostad's climate target means a reduction of 38% in greenhouse gas emissions by 2030. And this is calculated through the greenhouse gas protocol. So we measure also the progress by a climate calculation method that also provides a cost estimate for every climate improvement. So the second aspect that I talked about, collective impact, is a really effective way to accelerate the transformation to a net zero carbon economy. And there is a trend to start partnerships between company and organizations today in order to reach common sustainability goals. And one example is the SSAB's partnership with LKAB and Vattenfall, who together have creating hybrid technology, which will be the first that will make it possible for the first fossil-free steel production in the world. And this technology is very special because it has a fossil-free hydrogen that has the potential to reduce the carbon emissions in Sweden with 10%. And another example of collective impact is HS30. It's Sustainable Stockholm 2030, which is an industry initiative for a rapid transformation in the sustainable housing industry. And Magnolia Bostad is one of 21 members. And the third aspect and most powerful creation of impact is the shared value, the double value creation, like I said before, meaning sustainable growth and profit. And the main premise behind this shared value is that a company's competitiveness and the health of societies are dependent and will actually improve both the financial value of the company and creating sustainability value at the same time. And this should be done in a measurable way. And measurement makes sustainable business strategies tangible for investors as well. So just quickly, how do you measure shared value? Because
should we park that for a second and let the others in and add the measurement as an add-on to the others initiative?
Yeah, okay.
Helena, I would like to ask you, because you have created CIO CO2 as an initiative, which is an add-on to all the things that Lisa was mentioning. Tell us a bit about that initiative.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so we started this initiative to bring organizations in Sweden together because we need to reduce the climate footprint of the IT industry. So CIO CO2. Through this initiative, we provide IT leaders with practical guidance, but also tools to measure and reduce the carbon footprint. But first, let me frame the problem or challenge.
Possibilities, what our minister told us on 2 days ago.
Technology has made enormous impact in our lives in almost every aspect, and it has brought us tremendous benefits. I think it's fair to say that technology and digitalization is a hero when it comes to finding solutions to most problems, even problems so big such as climate change. But what we haven't talked enough about is the footprint, the climate footprint of digitalization. So some alarming facts on that. It's estimated that the ICT industry, information communication technology industry, it stands for approximately 10% of the global energy consumption. So everything we create digital, it needs to run, store and back up somewhere. And even when that somewhere is in the cloud, it's actually somewhere. It's a data center, and data center runs on electricity. Another fact is it's estimated that our industry is responsible for approximately 2% of the global greenhouse gas emissions. So that's equivalent to the emissions of the entire aviation industry. So we have emissions and consumption, and to add on that, we have hardware. And hardware, it's an issue from the beginning where we're mining minerals and the manufacturing process all the way up into till the end, till the waste. Electronic waste is a huge problem today. So this is in fact a problem today, but as we know, our industry is making other industries jealous by growing so fast. So we are scaling technology by the minute, and at the same time we are scaling the footprint if we don't act differently. So what we need is not to stop using technology, no way. What we need is a sustainability perspective while we do it. And that's why we started this initiative, CIO CO2. So basically two main reasons. First, to spread evidence-based knowledge on this problem, on this impact our industry needs to deal with, and secondly, to inspire and create solutions, and also to bring forth a lot of good best practices that there is today. And over a year, CIO CO2 existed. We have over 150 IT leaders and CIOs supporting this, and also spreading good knowledge and best practice within this network. So.
Very exciting and a great initiative. And one of the things that we've been talking a lot about throughout the conference is the transition, the energy transition, the green transition within a timeline. We know why we're doing it, but we also need to address the fact that in a short and a medium term, it potentially is related to cost, behavioral change, lowered margin and potential lowered profit, which means that the emissions that you are addressing, and the aviation industry is doing the same, the fashion industry is doing the same, but you also need to communicate to consumers that there's a cost involved or a profit sharing that's involved. How do you talk about that bit? Because it's very easy to be green hallelujah. There's so many possibilities in the green transition. How do you address the cost side of it?
Yeah, and I think, first, I think this is, our industry hasn't seen this. So it's first of all, it's a knowledge thing. We need to see that data centers, hardware has this, it comes with this cost. And I think talking to organizations for over a year, we can see that the knowledge we need to enhance the knowledge regarding this, but there is quite a fast response to it. And the positive thing is there is also cost efficiency in this. So you have that to tag along with the good cause in this quest, you can say.
Very good, and I'm glad you're taking responsibility. We'll continue on that route. And before that, Katarina, you have the privilege of meeting, seeing, fostering, scaling up companies that are addressing exactly this issue. Tell us.
Yes, thank you. As you said before, I'm working for Lead, a deep tech incubator, working with business to business in Östergötland. And we have the possibility and the luck meeting so many researchers working with disruptive technique that really can save the world. And we are focusing on these deep tech ideas together with sustainability. So since 2006, we have worked with a lot of startups, which are now having a revenue of 1.6 billion Swedish crowns and more than 1,100 people working within these industries and startup companies. And what we see is that our really most important goal is to help them find their launch market and also get the first customers, because it's when they get out on the market, spreading abroad and being used out there, it's then they can save the world. So what we do, we bring them in really early. It can be a research idea that we meet, and we start discussing sustainability really early together with them. And since like 3 years back, we included sustainability within the whole business development process that we work on. And we do like a sustainability analysis, both with, of course, the sustainability within the economical parts, because that's really important, as well as the environmental and the social parts. And then we put up goals, short-term, mid-term, and long-term, which we can follow up during the whole journey when they are in the incubator. And I would say the incubators within the whole Sweden, we are sitting on a golden mine with meeting up all these brilliant minds with really, really exciting ideas that can change and make better for this planet. A couple of years ago, we also started to try to measure, because as Lisa said, when you measure, it's really a strong way of how you can communicate what we do. So we used avoided emission framework and measured CO2 positive impact and the possibility and potential for a couple of startups. Like we had like 4 startups we worked on, and then it ended up that they had the potential to save 25% of Sweden's total emissions yearly. But what we see is when you count on a really early stage with these companies, it's a lot of guessing. And it also costs both a lot of money to do the calculations and a lot of time for the companies. So actually we have gone through that now. So we are not doing that as much any longer, because it's too much guessing is what we have come to a conclusion of. It's better to put up these goals in short and be in the long term and work through the whole development process and help them get the first launch market and get out, getting their customers.
Thank you for sharing. You all 3 of you make measuring sound relatively easy, but I'm sure that there's been stumbling blocks along the road. But before that, Joakim, here are companies and corporates measuring and taking their responsibility. How's the government measuring impact in what you do?
Well, we being in the radical innovation business, we try to. I mean, internally, we break down our strategies into objectives and key results to make sure that we are driving towards the right goals. Externally, we evaluate the projects as well as we evaluate the specific innovation programs. And we also contract external assessments that other corporations make sure that we are doing the right stuff. And there's also other agencies watching our back. Or no, not watching our back, they're watching us and make sure that we're doing the right thing. Exactly.
Limelight on you. But I think one of the aspects of measuring is that it can seem like hard work, lots of reporting, an admin burden on top. And there are obviously geographical loopholes. You guys are doing this, Sweden's doing this, Europe is doing this, but other parts of the world, how do you see the potential loophole of people identifying that there's a green premium? I need to go get either my mining or my minerals somewhere else, or my plastic somewhere else. How do you address that?
I think that's a hard problem to address, but I think for us, the way we see it, you start within your industry, within your domain, where you have your knowledge, and there is where you can have the biggest impact to start. So I think that's all industries now. We don't have a lot of time, like the IPCC report told us earlier this week. We need to start now. So you start within your business, within your industry, and I think what we created, we sort of done a basic toolbox to help you get started. It's free, it's accessible, and it's if you work within an IT organization, it's a great way to start.
We don't have that much time, but Lisa, could you wrap up this box for us? You
Yes,
kicked us off.
exactly.
Where would you like us to end?
No, exactly, because I think like where we actually do most impact is when we see the business opportunities, like I said, in the double value creation. And how do you actually measure then the shared value, the double value creation? At first, I think it's important to identify the social and climate issues that you have at target, and that actually represent opportunities to increase revenue or to decrease, reduce costs. And the next step for that is to develop a solid business case based on research and analysis of how social improvement will actually directly improve business performance. And in deeptech, for example, it's one of the startups that I'm part of, with the purpose of sustainable innovation. We help management groups to identify these new business cases with a shared value potential through a unique innovation process. And after identifying these business cases, you can test the business case by examining the customer value, as well as the revenue, what kind of revenue it has potential to generate in the future. So, I mean, the sustainability effect of the business case is actually really important as well to have a research on and to, yeah. So I think that we can make a really big difference when it comes to the double value creation.
Double value creation, measurement, identifying where you are in the value chain, putting yourself in a timeline. Thank you, ladies, for sharing and measuring and inspiring us all to measure, and the government measures as well. We will be moving on.
Thank you.
And now we're going to talk about more real innovation, more real impact. Check out and be blown away by MAXIV ESS, cutting-edge material science. First, we'll see a short film followed by a reflecting panel discussing the vision of this research facility, ESS and MAXIV. It's to create international world-leading center with material science and life sciences. The facility will provide Sweden with a unique condition for conducting excellent research. Enjoy.
So we are at the MAXIV laboratory. This is the first fourth generation synchrotron source, which means that we have a very well-ordered light. It's coherent and it's very intense, which means that researchers can see finer details than has ever been possible before. It ranges all the way from pharmaceuticals to cultural heritage. It's energy materials, solar cells. Users come from worldwide. So inside MAXIV, we have 16 beamlines or experiment stations where the scientists do their experiments. The beamline behind me, they are doing experiments that has to do with future electronic materials and quantum computing, for example. And our neighbor ESS is located about 1 kilometer from us and will be complementing the research that we are doing here. So you can look at the same samples and see different details at MAXIV and at ESS.
ESS is a large research infrastructure. It's international, so we have 13 member countries who are building this together. And it's going to be a facility for material science. Typically, researchers apply for time in order to solve some scientific problem they have. So there are many, many applications to the science that will be done at ESS. So we want to generate neutrons. And in order to do that, we're building a large accelerator, which accelerates protons. And these protons then come crashing into what we call the target. And the target is going to be down there in this pit, and it will rotate all the time, and it will be hit by an accelerator beam. So the neutrons, which are generated over in the target, they're being led out through what we call a beam insert, and then they're guided through this pipe here. They're guided out to the instrument where the experiments will actually be performed. The type of research that we're going to do at ESS is going to be most useful. When you look at matter and material, you're really looking at solutions for society. So we'll have research that is relevant for new energy solutions, greener solutions, addressing the challenge of health and aging, and also the digital challenge, new materials for IT solutions. ESS will be a user facility, which means that researchers from universities and other facilities and institutes around Europe, but also around the world, are welcome to apply for time here. Also, researchers from industry will be welcome. The interest is huge. If you look around the world at neutron facilities, most of these instruments have at least twice as many people waiting to use them as there is actual time. So the interest is huge in terms of capacity, but it's also the case that we're going to have excellent instrumentation and a very strong beam. So we'll be able to do experiments here that can't be done elsewhere. New technology is being tested and everything is being pushed to the limit.
So we are at the MAXIV laboratory. This is the first fourth generation synchrotron source, which means that we have a very well-ordered light. It's coherent and it's very intense, which means that researchers can see finer details than has ever been possible before. It ranges all the way from pharmaceuticals to cultural heritage. It's energy materials, solar cells. Users come from worldwide. So inside MAXIV we have 16 beamlines or experiment stations where the scientists do their experiments. The beamline behind me, they are doing experiments that has to do with future electronic materials and quantum computing, for example. And our neighbor ESS is located about 1 kilometer from us and will be complementing the research that we are doing here. So you can look at the same samples and see different details at MAXIV and at ESS.
ESS is a large research infrastructure. It's international, so we have 13 member countries who are building this together. And it's going to be a facility for material science. Typically, researchers apply for time in order to solve some scientific problem they have. So there are many, many applications to the science that will be done at ESS. So we want to generate neutrons. And in order to do that, we're building a large accelerator, which accelerates protons. And these protons then come crashing into what we call the target. And the target is going to be down there in this pit, and it will rotate all the time, and it will be hit by an accelerator beam. So the neutrons, which are generated over in the target, they're being led out through what we call a beam insert, and then they're guided through this pipe here. They're guided out to the instrument where the experiments will actually be performed. The type of research that we're going to do at ESS is going to be most useful. When you look at matter and material, you're really looking at solutions for society. So we'll have research that is relevant for new energy solutions, greener solutions, addressing the challenge of health and aging, and also the digital challenge, new materials for IT solutions. ESS will be a user facility, which means that researchers from universities and other facilities and institutes around Europe, but also around the world, are welcome to apply for time here. Also, researchers from industry will be welcome. The interest is huge. If you look around the world at neutron facilities, most of these instruments have at least twice as many people waiting to use them as there is actual time. So the interest is huge in terms of capacity, but it's also the case that we're going to have excellent instrumentation and a very strong beam. So we'll be able to do experiments here that can't be done elsewhere. New technology is being tested and everything is being pushed to the limit.
This is so exciting, isn't it? So let me invite here up on stage Christian Lindfors, CEO Science Village AB. We have also with us here Sindre Pettersson Åsköld, already seen in the film, Senior Science Advisor at ESS, and Olof Karis, known by the name Charlie, I've been told, CEO at MAXIV. So please, you can stand around this table, or let's move this a bit closer here so it feels a bit tighter. Here you go. Charlie, you can choose tables.
I'll stand in the middle then.
That's fine too. So wonderful to see the film. I've seen it before, of course, to prepare. But Christian, would you like to add from your perspective and talk about your facilities and how you maneuver in this territory?
Yes, we are a publicly owned company. And our mission is to support the development of a knowledge ecosystem around these facilities. So we're trying to form an environment that will be able to take advantage of the results from the facilities rather than doing research. As an asset, we have 18 hectares of land, and fully developed will be a campus around 400,000 square meters. So it's quite big. It's located right beside those two facilities. And at the moment, we have about 20,000 square meters in production. And the first tenants will move in this fall, and it will be Oatly, the oat milk company, that will put their new innovation and research center there. We are also planning for a new meeting venue, which will be able to seat 1,000-seated people, guests, right next door to these facilities. So we're trying to stimulate this to be a meeting place that will generate much more than just science, only even meetings and innovations. Going forward, we're also planning for a new science center out in the area. The establishment of Lund University, probably next 5 years. And other institutions as well as other companies moving out there, research-heavy companies. Yes, that's probably...
Sounds like you're busy and
yes.
then you have lots of fun at work, I'd say. So Charlie, this is so exciting, and of course people keep asking you when you're going to open up, but I already said 2026, so is that right? And
No. We are completely open for business. Sindre
Sorry. That was a miss. 2016.
2016 we opened, and we are open for business. In fact, we delivered 5,000 hours to academia industry collaboration 2022. We had 33 companies using us for their research in 2022, and we sold 700 hours to companies to come and make us this fantastic super X-ray microscope that delivers 16 different experimental stations running at the same time, where we already today interact with pharma, life science, energy and materials, metallurgy. Alfa Laval is a big user. We have a very good collaboration. There are certainly sectors that we need to develop, but we are definitely up and running. We're open for business.
I, of course, know that. It was just a bit of a...
We're very similar.
Well, similar, but different.
Same, but different.
Same. And of course, your neighbors and the collaboration is going to be very, very crucial for the success of these facilities. So do you get the question often about when do you open?
Yes, I do get the question all the time. So ESS is in full construction. We are installing, we are commissioning, we are building as fast as we can. 2026, we'll probably have neutrons. 2028, we start offering time to people. It is a spectacular project. We are 13 countries building this together. Sweden and Denmark stand as hosts, so that's a special position for us. It's one of the largest research infrastructures being constructed in the world today, so it's quite fantastic to have it here in Lund. And when we are fully functional and up and running, we're going to be one of the absolutely best and world-leading research facilities using neutrons. So there will be amazing facilities in the future. Right now, we're very much focused on getting it all in order, trying to install everything, getting everything to work, commissioning things. You know, it's a very distributed project, so we have people at about 100 labs around Europe actually contributing to what's being built here in Lund. So
that's amazing.
Yes, so it's an interesting time. Our focus is fully on delivering, but of course we're also developing and preparing for our user program, where we will welcome academic users, but of course also industrial users. And when it comes to neutrons, we have, if you look around the world, they're used quite a lot by the automotive industry, by the technology and industrial materials industry, but also by softer industries like food and cosmetic, and not least life science.
So, in speaking of customers and the teams that you will be collaborating with once you're open and already for MAX4, how about making these facilities as attractive as possible for researchers, but also for other investments in Sweden? What do we need?
I think the facilities are already taking their share of the ecosystem. What we know from MAX4 is that there are many actors that need to be in place. I think what will happen between the facilities in the coming years will be absolutely essential if we will be successful in exploiting these investments or not. The facilities, I don't think we should really be the actors that sell ourselves out on the open market, because then we will divert from our core activity, which is actually to deliver excellent science. There are many actors that are already there, but at the previous meeting I said, unfortunately in Sweden we have a tendency to build this ecosystem like you're trying to build a bicycle wheel, one spoke at a time. So you put in one spoke and then you find out that it's not a very good wheel, it doesn't function well. So then you remove that spoke and you try to put in another one. So long-term commitment creates structures that can engage, create what is needed to fill the gaps that exist in the ecosystem today. Commitment from government, but also from corporate structures to fill the gaps. If we start now, we will be ready when the ESS is ready. We are already there, but as we can say that it took time to even get us on the radar for companies. So if we start to build that now, I think we'll be in good shape once ESS is in operation.
Thank you. You wanted to add, Christian, and then Sidney?
Yeah. I got the pass from Charlie here about what we are planning to do, and it's all about creating the right environment for people to be attracted to move here and to stay here and have their families with them. So it's not only about the hard facts like MAX4 and ESS, it's about the quality of life. So by looking into how can we make it as diverse as possible, we tend to look at functions that actually complement the facilities rather than being something else. So we're looking at what do we need to get this full picture in place. And we're building it based on, we see attractive ecosystems today. What kind of culture do they have? It's about openness, it's about collaboration, it's about progression, lifting the values that actually forms behaviors. And behaviors will stick when you're in the ecosystem, and that's what builds the ecosystem over time.
So where are you looking? Where are you looking for inspiration?
Well, we look everywhere actually in the world, because we're going from being like, say, top 100 in the world as an ecosystem, having the possibility based on these two facilities to go up to top 10. So we have to look at the best places in the world, and we find inspiration in different parts based on the different aspects. Like in the values, you could go to Silicon Valley, you have the kind of environment you want, but then you have how you organize it. It might not be good to look at those.
I get it.
Yes.
So Sindra, please, you wanted to add to?
Yes. So I think it's interesting to understand that while ESS and MAX4 will provide service in terms of instrumentation and staff, it's not a pure service deal once you come there. It is more of a collaboration because it is so advanced. These are difficult methods. You can get a lot out of them, but you really need to put a lot in to get there. So what we're really looking for is collaborative counterparts in industry in order to make this fly. And industry is, of course, not one homogeneous group, but the dairy people are going to need something totally different than the automotive people. And we really hope that they will, that inside these different sectors, they will be able to develop their own collaborations and their own platforms so that we have somebody to work with there. And of course, a lot of this is already happening, mostly connected to MAX4 because you're already in operation. But we have, you mentioned Alfa Laval's initiative, we have Tree Search, we have Northern Lights on Food. There's a lot of stuff actually happening that we see as really, really positive.
I can imagine there's lots of learnings from your side to what's happening at ESS.
With respect to ESS, we have a lot of collaboration to make sure that we make life as easy as possible for our users once we are open together. So there is a lot of interaction on a day-to-day basis. Still, of course, it is different to cooperate with someone that is still a few years ahead before they actually deliver something to users. I want to, however, comment also. I completely agree with what Sindra said. I think there are excellent examples. It's really important to understand that we have a very diverse need in the sector. So it's clearly not one size fits all. Some sectors are quite mature. You mentioned Tree Search, which I think is an excellent initiative where basically wood industry in Sweden came together and sat down with MAX4 to discuss what type of tools could be built at MAX4 to satisfy the needs of the wood industry. And what the wood industry did is that they created this consortium, Tree Search, that with also Wallenberg Wood Science Center, which I think actually put in even more money into that. But that, I think that is a great example, one great example of how a sector could prepare for how they would be a good user and really make the best use of these big facilities. And I think Alfa Laval's initiative is another great example where the CEO, Tom Eriksson, has now gathered several companies to see how they can prepare to make use of the facilities. I think there are good examples and we should learn from them.
Christian, would you like to elaborate a bit more on the aspects of collaboration? Because there are so many factors that plays into this that needs to fit together. You were talking a bit about, the creative spaces and everything that's needed. But just a question: how often do you talk and meet?
Not very much yet.
Not yet.
But we have collaboration projects going on. We have the MAXIV Industry Arena project together, which is an effort to try to create a joint access point for industry going into research, getting the help, even to structure or to build the research questions going into the facilities. That's one of the collaborations we have. We also have collaboration because we're planning for a science center, and together one of the exhibitions will be the MAX4 and ESS exhibition, which will also act like a visitor center maybe for the facilities to bring their guests, so to explain what they're actually good at and how it works. So we have initially, but we will probably going forward have much more collaboration when it comes to creating the environment that will attract even the researchers to stay longer.
So this is, of course, a golden opportunity to invite all sorts of organizations to your facility that is already operational, but also in the future to ESS. So from this perspective, the innovation community, what would you like to tell them in terms of, give them a good pitch to join?
Okay, neutrons are fantastic and also really difficult to work with. And the companies you work with, if they're going to have good use of ESS when we open, they need to start building competence now. Now, Sweden has access to neutrons today. We are members of ILL and ICES. They can go to PSI. There are great places around Europe and around the world where you can right now start talking to these facilities about your projects, try to figure out what you can do and apply for time. This is what the companies should be doing, I think. Waiting for ESS is probably not the best way to do it, because then you won't be hitting the ground running, so to speak.
So you have to be up and running already now, just in different fields, and be ready for you.
Build competence.
Excellent. So Charlie.
My pitch would be, talk to us. We have the best facility in the world, one of the best. And I understand that the barriers might be intimidating, but there are good examples and we can guide you in the right direction. So dare to reach out. You will, for the most difficult and most pressing questions, perhaps for your organization, have access to tools that you will not find elsewhere. They are, again, it's not the toolbox you get if you go down to the supermarket. These are very, very exclusive tools. So again, you need to find your discussion partner, but the barriers can be drastically lowered if you team up with us, because we can guide you. So talk to us.
Great pitches. And Christian.
Yeah.
You need lots of different. You need good schools, and you need beautiful gyms, and you need, of course, all sorts of things that are more related to science than that.
But building an ecosystem, it's about partnerships. It's about being a part of building it. It's not the one single player that makes it happen. So my pitch is, if you want to be able to be a part of creating the most attractive ecosystem around life science and material science going forward in the world, sign up for this and be a part of creating it.
That's a great one too. So I have one final question. In 5 years, where is Science Village? Where is MAX4 and where is ESS? Sindra.
In 5 years, that is 2028, we will be rolling out our user program for the first instruments after a couple of years of testing and commissioning. So we will have done some experiments just to see that everything works. We'll be welcoming users. At the same time, the other 12 instruments that we're also building will still be in commissioning, and they're about to be rolled out as well. It's going to be a time of enthusiasm and frustration.
Well, frustration is good. We all know that, right?
But you know, we're going to put one foot in front of the other, and it's going to work out really well.
Excellent. We can't wait. So, Charlie.
So we have expanded our portfolio of potential experiments, at least with one extremely high, top-notch facility for medical imaging, and we have probably increased our purchased beam time by a factor of 5, because industry will find us so useful once we get the good examples out and known. I actually wanted to mention that there is a very good example tied to the MAXIV arena, SMILE. I think it's worth mentioning that there are sort of incubators there that are already helping. So mediators and incubators, that's something we haven't mentioned so much. And I think when that ecosystem is developing now around Science Village, I think we will really take off.
Thank you. And Christian?
Yeah, we're not starting from scratch here in Lund. So for me, 5 years, it's a long time. We are probably a very vibrant city around these two facilities in 5 years, and a lot of new acquaintances in the form of both researchers and industry on place. And we will have a good platform of also other services for this to happen. So a vibrant, very active meeting place. I would imagine that in 5 years.
Well, excellent input, Sindra, Charlie, and Christian. Thank you so much, and best of luck with your extremely important work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Christian, you stay with me, okay?
Thank you, Lund, for that insightful discussion. We're now going to move on and discuss the Edge Learning Lab, which is a unique test bed environment, which enables developers, data scientists, students, researchers, you and me, and other users to explore the possibilities and limitations of edge learning. It is AI Sweden who has joined forces with several partners and organizations, as you might remember from discussions yesterday. Basically, this is a response to the rapid advancement in technologies that calls for new ways to transfer, store, and process data. Check out the film.
What's unique about this lab is that it's an open sandbox for our partners. We want them to be able to go from an idea to proof of concept and gain the necessary knowledge to know what they should implement and how they should implement, so they can accelerate the use of AI. And what we do here is really facilitate various types of experimentation, testing, learning, new ways to fail, new ways to succeed. And we do that in a collaborative fashion. We say, invest together and share with many.
When it comes to AI projects, you also want to make sure that it scales. And you want to test something close by to where you are, where you have people, where you have equipment, and then you want to be able to distribute that maybe globally to all the other environments that you have. So I think that's one of the biggest winning themes of being here at the testbed.
Since we're a startup developing tools for edge learning, specifically federated learning, I mean, having an infrastructure like the Edge Lab is really invaluable. It's a place where we can test our software in real production-like environments and collaborate with some of the best enterprises in Sweden on this.
The technology we're exploring here solves a number of paradoxes that we've seen in traditional AI training. Traditional AI training, you have a data center somewhere, you send all the data there and you train on some large computer and you get your model at the end of the day. In edge learning, we move the algorithms to the edge, to cars, to satellites, to hospitals, and we use the compute power that's available out there. It's a lot less data we have to ship. We don't have to be concerned about sending sensitive data from the field back to a data center across country borders and so forth, and we actually train in the devices.
We see this as a game changer in developing autonomous driving software in the future. A very exciting area that we are working on as well is space. So we have projects, for instance, where we are developing AI models on board of satellites in a federated fashion. This is relevant, for example, for Earth observations, where we aim at creating an alert about, for instance, forest fires.
It enables, for example, hospitals to collaborate around data that they could not do in the past. We now see interest from the financial sectors, the banks that have not been able to collaborate before to combat financial crimes. So it's absolutely changing or opening up things that haven't been available in the past.
I think the speciality around this lab is that it's actually not just multi-industry collaboration on paper, but in fact, I mean, if you take a look on all the logos, companies and customers involved, it is really a universal approach to AI development. And it is very thrilling to see how a community brings AI into life.
This lab is available wherever you are in the world. So we're seeing a large interest internationally for this lab.
And a lot of companies want to explore how far can we push it. And every year we see new possibilities opening up as the technology develops.
It's cutting edge, it's interesting, you get to meet a lot of incredible people who really know what they do and just see what's going on in technology and the future. Great fun, great fun. I love it.
Well, you heard the man. It's great fun. They love it. If they love it, I love it. Thank you, AI Sweden, because the Edge Learning Lab has been internationally acclaimed and acknowledged. And we have launched promising collaborations with MIT and the European space agencies. Why is this important? Because as we all know, there's a halo effect. There are indirect implications that are just as important than the actual lab. Sweden has, thanks to this lab, been able to attract foreign capital, international talent, curiosity and excitement who also love it and talk about it with a big smile. Key to success in addressing many of these possibilities and missions we're discussing at Sweden Innovation Days are hinged on just that: talent, curiosity, media coming and looking at what we're doing, other types of attention, and not the least, hope. But I have another question, and I hope to engage you here, Joakim. Edge learning, what's the difference between some sort of regular AI and edge learning?
So edge learning is about, basically it's about machine learning. Traditionally, machine learning requires lots of data, lots of GPUs, really big data centers. You cannot have that kind of machine learning running on your personal device or your health monitor or your wearable monitoring your sleep. So you have to have edge learning on the device learning. So comparable, you don't want these guys connected to the internet and a big cloud all the time. You want that to be in real time. So edge being out in the leaves, learning, machine learning on the edge.
The actual physical edge. And we should be connecting this to the emissions that we talked about in the previous section on measurement. So that will be a to-do for next year.
Got it, writing.
So, moving on. Because we need the AI Sweden to keep working. We've also been discussing the importance of broader coalition. And we've decided to be Nordic and European in our ambitions in our overarching strategy. And it's important to be local, regional, as we implement real change. We're here to look at a specific municipality and their journey towards innovative climate solutions. Uppsala municipality will share their insights on working with startups and how they drive innovation. And let us start with an insightful film, and then I will welcome a panel. Please.
Well, Uppsala is a fast-growing city, but we also want to be a sustainable city, a sustainable municipality. We have ambitious goals. We want to be climate neutral by 2030 in only 8 years. And after that, we want to be climate positive. And startups are really important for us. Through them, we get access to new technology, new ideas, and new innovations. And we see them as part of the municipality, as our own R&D department.
We collaborate very closely with our colleagues within the innovation support system. I have colleagues in the room behind me right now that are talking about innovation, sustainability, and how they can work together based on our challenges that we try to define and then expose, both to startups and innovation support experts, students, and researchers.
So one example is a few years ago when we realized we had problems that the electricity would not be enough for the city to grow, and we needed a number of technical solutions to fix this. And Ignite Sweden, that match public sector to startups, helped us formulate a challenge that could be met by startups, in this case, Twin.
They presented a problem, a challenge that they had. Here in Uppsala, it's a capacity problem. So with our system, we had a solution for this and the possibility to create flexibility by monitoring and controlling different energy resources in the municipalities' different facilities. For example, heating pumps. So you can reduce the consumption at certain times when the grid have problems with the capacity.
I think one of the key success factors that we have here in Uppsala is that we have very clear roles, and we as a business incubator, we work with supporting the startups and help them grow and succeed and take their product and solution to the market.
To be able to also cooperate with the municipality, the region, the university is really powerful, and as a startup here in Uppsala you get a lot of help, and that is, I would say, quite unique.
Well, I think working with external partners are crucial to make innovation happen, but it's not enough. We need to build our own innovation culture internally as well. And to do so, we have an innovation plan with different building blocks. For example, building a culture, setting a structure, and adding competence to the organization. And right now we're standing in our innovation lab, which is under construction, where people can come and collaborate and be inspired and try out new ideas.
Well, the future of Uppsala is bright. I'm sure that we will reach our ambitious goals. Uppsala will become climate neutral. Uppsala will become climate positive, thanks to our buzzing startup sector, thanks to our 2 universities and the innovation system of Uppsala. But the key factor here is collaboration between all these actors. Working together, we will achieve these goals.
Thank you. And now time for a panel to discuss this. Annika Remeus from Uppsala Municipality that we saw in the film, Marit Finch-Westin from Ignite Public. Welcome. Marit, tell us about your work.
Yes, so our mission is to match innovative startups with the needs and challenges in the public sector. It could be a municipality or a region or another public organization. So we see pilots as a strategic tool to drive innovation and to work with it. So it's, like you said, they said in the video, we start with the challenges and then we take it from there. But it's a process that also helps you understand your own internal processes when it comes to innovation. And it can teach the organization to be a bit more flexible, find more agile ways of working. We deal with a lot of complexity in the public sector. And we have the strategic objectives that can be very broad and difficult they are not so tangible. So it can also help us, the process can also help you to find a starting point, where to start to doing something operationally in a small scale and then scale it up. So,
some sort of Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah, well, a little bit.
Identifying the problem, looking for the solution. And what does that mean in reality for you guys in Uppsala?
Yes, so Uppsala municipality, in the municipalities in Sweden, they work with childcare, elderly care, city planning with waste management, the water, electricity, and of course, education. So we have a lot of challenges. What we need to work with is the external support systems so that we don't think that we can build and develop everything ourselves. And we have worked with Ignite Sweden for more than 4 years. And by now we have matched over 100 challenges and started a lot of pilots that we now see scale and grow out in the organization. So in the film, you saw us working on the electricity challenge, but we also worked with other types of challenges. For example, the dialogue with citizens, finding new ways to pick up what the needs of the citizens of Uppsala are. And also safety and security, both geographically, but also different age groups. And the solutions can be very technical as sensors, but it can also be new ways of influencing and working together with young people, elderly, with students, university, and of course the startups.
And for everyone that's out there looking who doesn't live in Uppsala, will we benefit from the solutions and the ideas and the plans that you have implemented, your insights?
Of course. The globe is bigger than Uppsala. It's Sweden's fourth largest city. And in public sector, we see that we share challenges with a lot of other municipalities and cities, both in Sweden and around the world. And we work with other cities in Sweden and see if we can scale their solutions in our organization.
What does the futurist say?
I'm just curious, do you also have an international outreach? Because as you say, the world is bigger than Sweden.
So far in these 4 years, we have mainly worked with national companies, but we have of course been inspired by international examples. We don't know if we have exported any of our pilots and developments yet, but I definitely see that there is a scaling potential in it.
We talked about measurements. Maybe that is a KPI. How much of the good stuff that we've created can we export? Final words for you.
I think scaling is really important because there are so many municipalities and organizations that have the similar needs. And we don't have to invent the wheel all over the place. So working together and just sharing the experiences and learning from each other is really important, I think. And yeah.
Thank you for coming here and sharing, and hopefully more people will come to Uppsala and look at the good work you're doing there. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And it's time to switch topic and discuss Switch to Sweden. This discussion happened this morning in Lund, and we get to see it now. In a nutshell, we need 70,000 additional talents to work in technology in Sweden by 2024. So the question I ask myself is, where will they come from? How will they know about all the possibilities in Sweden? How can we lure them? And my personal conviction, how do we support remote teams and scale up our tech needs and allow people, not the least women, to work from home or outside of our borders? Run the film from Lund.
So, hi everybody, very welcome to this session that we will talk about the talents in the companies and in our innovation ecosystem. My name is Anna Broders. I work at Linköping Science Park, but I'm also the program manager for a Vinnova-funded project, Switch to Sweden. We will start this session with a panel discussion together with 3 people that I hope they are with me at Zoom. And this will also be filmed and broadcast later today during Sweden Innovation Days. And after that, we will go on to different presentations and panels on this topic with a lot of nice speakers. So very welcome and nice to see you all at Zoom as well. The lack of competence is one of the biggest challenges that companies face today to grow. And if you only look in Sweden, then by 2024, we will need more than 70,000 talents in the work in the tech industries in Sweden. My name is Anna Broders. I am the program manager for Switch to Sweden, a Vinnova-founded project that is driven by Linköping Science Park. And the aim of the project Switch to Sweden is to increase the number of qualified matches between academic international talent that are already in Sweden and recruiting companies. And the focus of this panel discussion will be why new solutions are needed to connect and match talents with recruiting companies. But to start, I would like to address why these solutions are needed, and therefore I'm very happy to have this panel with me today. If we start with you, Linda Schöndarocci, who is the Business Area Director for the Swedish Public Employment Services. From your point of view, what is the need in Sweden overall?
Thank you, Anna. But I think everyone is experienced that we have problem with our skill supply in Sweden. It's turning to be a big problem, but at the same time, we have a lot of people that are unemployed and looking for jobs and possibilities. And I think we've been trying with the traditional solutions for a long time, and it seems that it's not getting better, it's getting worse. We have a big gap when it comes to this. And I think we have to have a new way of thinking, because I think all sectors and everybody has to contribute to make this happen. I don't think we can think that it's a big bang around the corner. I think it's a teamwork, and I think that we at the public sector has to go first to make it happen. We have to create possibilities for everyone to contribute in different ways. So I think it's important that we have this problem. We tried a lot of traditional solutions. Now we have to try a lot of initiatives and start to try new methods.
Thank you. Exciting times. There's a lot happening in the north of Sweden, which I think you all know. And Frida Fossland is the project manager for skill supply and business development at the region of Västerbotten. Frida, if you look at what's happening up in the north and when you meet companies, what are the challenges they see?
In the upcoming years, as you're saying, Anna, there will be green investments and establishments for about 1,000 million euros in the north of Sweden. And these green investments, of course, create completely new future opportunities here. So the population must grow, and it has to do so in a very short amount of time. And we need around 100,000 people within the next few years. And already today, some places in the north experience an acute shortage of people and labor. And this is true not only for the green industries for the future, but for all of the society up here in the north.
Thank you. Also in the program Switch to Sweden, we think that new solutions are needed to match the talents, the skills have with the company's recruitment needs. We use a tool in this project where we, with help of a questionnaire, match the talents with the companies. And around 1/3 of the questions in the questionnaire are based on hard skills and 2/3 are based on soft skills. Because in the end of the day, it's all about the people and for the right people to find the fit with the right company. And I'm very happy to have Dan Wikström with me today as well, who is the HR manager at Aurore. And this is actually a company that has found a match through this process. So Dan, how has this helped Aurore to find your next employee?
Yeah, thank you, Anna. So we first found the matchmaking tool for Switch to Sweden through Vinnova. And it's been a great tool for us to find international talents from academia, which is really hard to find in other places. So the tool has been easy to use. All the settings have been, it's been easy for us to find people and make it really worth our time. And it's been free also, which has been great for us as a small company. We've been able to find one person that we really like and that we are going to hire now. So he's starting with us within a few months, and we will go with him for at least 6 months and then reevaluate. And very exciting. We're excited, and I can't speak highly enough of the Switch to Sweden. it's been a game changer in finding academics and the bridge between academia and the business world here in Sweden.
Very happy to hear that. New solutions requires also, of course, new behavior. If we ask the panel, what are the opportunities or challenges with new solutions from your perspective? Linda, if we start with you.
I think at this point, we should focus on the possibilities actually, because we have tried, as I told before, other solutions. So I think it's the only way forward. We know a lot about the challenges, but I think that we can take care of that. One is that it could be hard to upscale new solutions coming from projects or upstarts that we have to take care of. But I also think that when it comes to need in this area, it's a really big problem for the society and all sectors. I think we have to look at new ways for upskilling, reskilling or recruitment. And I think it's you get a more open mind when you really see that the things you've been trying for a long time is not working out. So I think we focus on the possibilities and an open mind.
Definitely, I agree on that. And I know the Swedish Public Employment Service also work with, when you talk about open up, also work with open up a lot of your data. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah. Yes, at Arbetsförmedlingen we have the ecosystem for the labor market. We call it deeptech. And that's an ecosystem where we share open source. We share data from us and also from others that we want everyone to use and create value on. I would say it's an engine for innovation when it comes to skill supply system. We have shared data from the labor market, but also from the educational data too. That makes it possible to narrow the gap between education system and labor market. And I think that's an important role for us in the public area to make it possible to share everything we can so that a lot of people or organizations, startups and everything can use it for like this solution or other solutions so that everybody can contribute. We don't have to do the solutions at the public sector, but we should use our possibilities to make everybody possible for everybody and make this ecosystem where we can share and start more value of the data we have and get more people to share the data and their code. So I think that's an important way of seeing the public sector to make everyone else contribute and be innovative. It doesn't have to be us, but we have to make possibilities.
Great, thank you for that. Frida, what's happening in the north is of course also a big societal change, which also opens up for new solutions and new opportunities. Can you tell us a bit more?
Yes, I believe that Switch to Sweden is a perfect national initiative that we need, and we really appreciate all the efforts being made through the project to attract these talents, to attract them to stay in Sweden, and hopefully to look up and come to the north of Sweden, of course. Because we do, as I said earlier, we do need everyone for our societal change, but especially talents that can join us in our green transition work and help us in our society growth. Because we do have a lot of career opportunities here, and we have a lot to offer in the way of life, fantastic leisure opportunities, incredible nature, and fantastic culture life. So we have a lot to offer for people who wants to live and work in the north. And sadly, we do need these initiatives because we cannot only look for the south of Sweden, people from living there moving up in the north, because there's not enough people who wants to move and change their life in that manner, and we do need to look abroad for people. And I see this project is perfect because then we can just reach out to people who already are in Sweden and know our way of life and who are interested in staying after their studies. So I think it's just a perfect initiative.
Nice. Thank you to hear that. New solutions, and this is addressing, of course, both companies and the talents. And Don, you told me about Aurore and your way of recruiting, but do you see, so, and of course there you see as a company you're ready for it, but can you see, are talents also ready for these new solutions?
I think it depends. For smaller companies like Aurore, I think we're more nimble and ready for all these new solutions. And there's also so many new ways of recruiting people nowadays with short-term employment through consultancies and stuff. With the work from home trend, I see that as the world is our oyster and you can find talent everywhere. For bigger companies, I think the process will be a little longer. And for example, for regions, as with Frida, they might take some time, I believe. But because there's so many new solutions and so many ways of doing it nowadays, there is obviously a need for it. And so with all these new things like the Switch to Sweden and other initiatives, that's a good start. But I think we need to keep building on it because I think it will take time.
Frida, if you look at the companies in the north, like you mentioned, there's a lot of people needed. Are they open for these new solutions?
Well, I would say both yes and no. We do have companies who already today have English as their company language, but we, as in the north, both in Västerbotten and Norrbotten in northern Sweden, we do realize that more companies and all of society need to adapt more to English as one of two languages in the workplaces. And we are working towards this. It's something like we not only want to, but we also need to. But of course, this is a journey for us, and of course, this is a challenge that we need to do together and help out with. As the region of Västerbotten and Norrbotten, we have to work with our companies and to help them to adapt to this two languages in the workplace.
And that's, of course, that's another dimension. It's both a new solution of finding new talents in another way with help of these tools, right. But also with international talents and then the language adjustments. Right. Thank you for that. Linda, if the companies the Arbetsförmedlingen works with, are they open for these new kind of solutions?
I think that's differ a bit, but it's like that I talked about before. I think that when you really have big challenges, like in North that Frida is telling about, I think that you have to start to see new solutions. But I think, it's like we are as human. It's easy to try the things that we've been doing for a long time, but I think it's starting to get easier. And I think, like Don also said, that someone have to go before and start a movement to try different things. And I think it's when you do it in small pilots of sport, small experiments could be in one sector, it can be in one area in Sweden, so it's close to the companies and where you realize what kind of problems you have. I think it's really possible, and I think a lot of people see that a change is coming, and you have to be open for different kind of solution because it has to do with competence nowadays. More than ever.
Yeah. Thank you for that one. And I know the skill shortage is not a challenge only in Sweden, but in many countries. Yes. And I think to wrap up this panel, we all truly believe that these new solutions are needed. And we look forward to keep working with this in Switch to Sweden, but also to be inspired by others. Thank you very much to the panel and for all of you listening to this part. Thank you.
Welcome back. It is easy to talk about innovation. Talk, as if it's something that you could order. I would love 2 scoops of innovation, please. But it's hard-earned, high risk, and the path is foggy. It's time to applaud the brave and relentless entrepreneurs that are doing the heavy lifting. It's time to learn also about 2 initiatives that support impact startup on both government agency and grassroots level. I would like to welcome Josefin van der Meer, International Collaboration at Vinnova, Sweden's innovation agency, and Linda Kromdahl. You are the CEO of Things. Ladies, welcome to the panel.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Tell us, what do you do?
Yeah, I'm the CEO of Things. It's a deep tech community here in Stockholm, but we work internationally. We currently have about 100 companies as members in Sweden and abroad. And we also work a lot on the European level.
Yes, I work with deep tech related topics at Vinnova, and mainly also with like EU funding, with the big EU vehicle for investment, the EIC, European Innovation Council, where I work as a national contact point.
And you are here to promote a few events that are coming up and why it's important. Please tell us.
Yes, so Vinnova was appointed a governmental assignment together with the Swedish Agency of Economic and Regional Growth, the agency with a long name, where we looked into like the deep tech, the ecosystem of deep tech, and also like in collaboration, of course, and actually did what we are aimed to do, like identify like where in the system can we like make a difference, where can we make a change and add value, and then also like mobilize and in the end like fund like actions and activities that we thought could bring value into the system. So in this assignment we looked into different phases of the ecosystem, and I don't know if I have time to take all the conclusions.
Go for it, it's important.
Okay, so we had the first step, or the first segment of this assignment was a mapping study or a survey of the Swedish ecosystem, where we looked into the strengths and weaknesses in Sweden. And yeah, I'm not gonna go over all the story, but the conclusion we got from this is like the research. We are really good in research in some of the areas like quantum tech, life sciences, photonics, electronics, and we also have some highly relevant patents, meaning we have maybe not the highest quantity of patents, but the patents we have are highly cited. Citation rate, but what we could see is also when it comes to investment, like the proportion of the total investment that goes into all startups, the proportion that goes into deep tech is much less compared to many other regions that we looked into in this study, and also the size of the ticket, like the amount of money that actually goes in each investment is also less. So meaning like the investment in Swedish deep tech startups are weak. And this is like a really interesting, you know, we have a huge potential to do. We have this research, this high-level research and patents, but we have to attract and like de-risk the investment for investors to like go in and invest in deep tech. So this is actually something we're going to work further with, and is also a priority during the Swedish presidency. And I know it has been announced before, but there will be a conference on deep tech on this topic. It's a high-level meeting at Expo Arlanda, and it's by invitation only. But the main stage, the plenary, will be live streamed. So, you know, keep your eyes open.
And the focus is deep tech.
Yeah, focus is deep tech.
And Linda, from your point of view, why is this important? How are you feeding into this community and the gaps that they identified?
Yeah, and it relates very much because we work with Sweden Sustain Tech Venture Day. It's a full-day event for 30 carefully selected startups and scale-ups within the Sustain Tech community, Swedish only. And on the other side, in the audience, we invite international audience of investors, Swedish and international, and we aim at about 300 investors. It's going to be on the 31st of May, so we're very well aligned. We're actually just before the Deep Tech conference, and it's going to be in Stockholm, and it's a full-day agenda of the future flow of energy. But the 30 selected startups and scale-ups, they are in the wider sense. This is a project funded by Energy Agency, Swedish Energy Agency, and it's for the 5th year. And it's really about making sure that we get more cash, more capital into the Swedish clean tech community to build the companies.
Joakim, when you hear this, are you ever worried that we're picking the lucrative cherries out of the cake? There's deep tech opportunities, but as a whole transition, there are also less lucrative aspects here. And how did they get funding? And how do you as an energy identify those gaps?
Yeah, well, actually, I mean, investing in deep tech, that's a perfect example where the government taxpayers' money goes into bridging the gap between research and market applications. So we use our funding to bridge that gap and make these research-intensive, capital and time-intensive ideas ready for venture capital and market introduction. So yeah, it's a way of us bridging that gap. I really think it's a good thing.
Thank you for identifying the gaps, bridging the gaps, but also creating events allowing international capital to come and see what we can do. Thank you. And now we're going to hear from two startups that are walking the walk. Welcome Feel It, presented by founder Noizaltz. Tell us what you're doing.
So we developed like our nose can smell and like our skin can feel when we are hurt or when we are cold. So we developed a nano-based technology that can replace the skin. We call it electronic skin. So once you attach the electronic skin to any equipment, it learns the equipment and it tells you if the equipment is working in a normal way or not. And if not, what is the problem and what is the cause for action? What do you need to do? So we attach stickers on equipment and make the equipment smart. This is the basic idea.
Did you see yesterday's film that Joakim presented, which was Build a Baby? They could have needed electronic skin. In a more short-term timeline, what industries are interested in your application?
So our investors are Henkel, which is Loctite, and this is taking us to the process industry, and Continental, the German giant, which is taking us to the automotive, the hydrogen vehicle, and the electric car, where they want us to sense anomalies, leakages, and problems, and refineries that invested in us. So it's everything. It can be oil and gas, chemical, petrochemical, automotive. We can make any asset a smart asset if it's in our focus. We are a startup company, 6 years old. So we are really focusing where to do the POCs and where to cooperate because time is the most critical part for us.
Thank you for presenting. Good luck, and I look forward to seeing about your successes. Now I'd like to welcome up on stage Christopher Kadima, who will be presenting Deep Grid. Welcome, Christopher.
Thank you for having me. Deep Grid is a company that operates and builds battery energy storage facilities. We operate on our own software. What we enable is to help the transition to the fossil-free future by allowing more wind and solar energy to be put on the grid. These are not, production and consumption is instantaneous. So when you don't have that, when you have that mismatch, you need someone to stabilize the net. And that's what we do basically. So what we're looking now is to expand our facilities that we have in the Nordic region. And one of the big issues with companies like ours is that we're pretty CapEx intensive. So what we've done now is set up a green energy storage fund to open up for investors to look at battery storage and energy storage as an own asset class. We think that there will be great opportunities in the coming years in the Nordic region, but also in Europe as well, because this is a growing problem. As I said, when the energy mix sort of goes above 20% with solar and wind, you get these instabilities in the net.
Thank you, Christopher, for sharing that. And I assume the fact that we are in the midst of an energy crisis creates both challenges and opportunities, but puts you higher on the agenda and a priority for many companies. Thank you. Also look forward to hearing about your successes.
Thank you.
And now it's time to hand over. I would like to welcome the brilliant Karin Hübinette, who will moderate the next panel, The Future of Democracy.
Welcome to this session about AI and democracy. Last December, ChatGPT went public, and since then there's been an intense debate about the possibilities and the challenges connected to AI. How reliable and trustworthy is this technology? Will AI widen the gap between those who master the technology and those already underrepresented? These are some of the perspectives we're going to discuss today. And joining us from Quebec, Canada, and Mila Institute is Alison Cohen, Applied AI Projects Lead in AI for Humanity. From Gothenburg, Daniel Gillblad, co-director and scientific lead of AI Sweden. And here in the studio with me, Tony McCarrick, Senior Digital Analyst, Advisor at Atea. Welcome, all three of you. Daniel, I'd like to start with you and a sort of overriding question. Would you say that AI could strengthen democracy?
Yes, I really at least hope it will. The jury is a little bit out on that one, but fundamentally, if we go back to these models like ChatGPT and things like that, they will allow people to have even better access to information, better access to knowledge, easily explained, raise the skills for everyone, writing, participation in public life, etc., provide better and easier access to all kinds of public services and so on. But as with all AI and democracy, it's a lot about equal access for all, equal access to the opportunities that these technologies provide, basically. So what services do we actually put into use into society? How do we manage, for example, monetization so that we don't create information bubbles, which could even be stronger with these type of technologies, and make sure that the right, correct information gets out to everyone, and that everyone has access to these tools, basically.
So there is a possibility, but there are also some challenges, and we have to sort of get this right. Alison, what do you say when you hear Daniel? Do you agree with him?
I do tend to agree with him. Although I will caveat by saying it's very important to think about who is in the table, at the table, making these decisions about how our technology is being developed, because democracy might not be their priority. It might be, but do we want to leave it up to these folks that are developing our tools to be the ones deciding whether the impact is net good or net problematic? And I think that speaks to sort of the need for more multidisciplinary players engaged in the AI design process, who can bring that nuance to the table, who can bring those values to the table as well. I think what we're too often seeing among the development teams is an emphasis on the technical skills and not enough of an emphasis on the social sciences and other areas of reflection that would allow for more of a alignment with the values of democracy.
But this is actually sort of a core mission for you at Mila, right? And you work in a very interdisciplinary way. Could you tell us something about the sort of concrete reality of that? How does it work?
Yes, I'd be happy to. So on all of the projects that fall within my portfolio, we make sure to have multidisciplinary folks around the table at the very least, but also to include marginalized perspectives. So people coming from communities that the tool is going to impact and may in some cases impact them in adverse ways. And the idea is by bringing together this multidisciplinary group, it changes the way that the group determines its values. The values become placed much more on a plurality of opinions and integrating those opinions into the design process, trust building, community building, and then that ethos is sort of influencing the way that we roll out the tools as well. So I think that that has significant implications for the democratic nature of the projects that are being deployed.
This can always also be seen as a quite advanced and sometimes difficult technology, where software engineers, for instance, one might think would play a more important role. So what would you say? Whose expertise weighs the most?
I think people are often surprised to find that software engineers, though they have a very important role to play, a lot of the decisions that they're making should be influenced by folks with domain expertise. Questions that may seem incredibly technical, like where do we get our data and what should our data look like, should in fact be informed by those with an understanding on the ground of what this looks like and some of the challenges that it might present.
Tony, you've been working with digitalization and AI solution in a very hands-on way in the municipality of Södertälje. What would you say are the key factors for success, for making this work?
Well, I think a few of the key factors, as Alison has mentioned here, that you have to get different perspectives. What kind of problems are you trying to solve? And in Södertälje, where I worked, we tried to ask the questions, how do we make the municipality cleaner? How do we make things more accessible? How can we work with real-time data so people can find out, where am I going to throw my rubbish, or where am I going to be a sustainable person? So I think the perspective is a really big question. I think in this time of rapid change, we have a chance here to stand a moment and think, what type of society do we want? We're in charge, so we have to I think, really want to enforce the perspectives. What do we want to do? What's important? Do we know what our citizens want? Do we know how to get there? What does quality look like? Do we know it if we see it? That kind of stuff.
And how do you sort of know what to develop, with which path to choose?
Well, sometimes you don't know. In Södertälje, we tried to focus on the question, what's the problem that you want to solve? And one of them was just we wanted a cleaner Södertälje. So that's why we put sensors from Internet of Things and connected them up, and that meant that we could get it cleaner and that kind of stuff. But also working a lot with real-time data and giving people access to information so they could make informed decisions at the time when they wanted to do it. So they could act sustainably, or they could make the choices. And we live in a world of real-time data, and of course the quality of data is important. So you have to keep your ear to the floor, as they say, and I think you have to use many different types of concepts, or new concepts. What does a conversation about these type of questions look like? How do you create them? There's not one answer, many different ways. Keep your ear to the floor. I think that's important.
We'll stick to the concrete examples. Yes. Alison, you are working very hands-on with AI as a tool for addressing a quite serious societal problem, the one about trafficking. Could you elaborate a bit on what you're doing and what you try to achieve?
Yes, absolutely. So right now I'm working with a team on a human trafficking or anti-human trafficking tool called Infrared. The idea is that we're using artificial intelligence to identify patterns on the online escort market as a way of creating a thoughtful and meaningful intervention in this space. And of course, with the domain of human trafficking, a lot of it is clandestine, of course, so it's very hard to get accurate information in terms of numbers and trends and other information on how perpetrators conduct their work. So it's been very important for us to engage directly with survivors of human trafficking. And in order to do that meaningfully, we actually had to attend a workshop around what it meant to be engaging with end users in a way that allows for them to really be partners on the project so that they can contribute as much as possible. And for us, that meant giving them proper credit, giving them, making sure we had their consent in the data that we're collecting and how we distribute it, but also compensating them properly. And I think that those are really important elements to consider when comparing how traditional AI technology is being built, where all this data is collected on us, and frankly, none of those C's are being achieved, so to speak.
You're nodding, Daniel. What do you want to say when you hear about this example from the reality of Alison in Quebec?
No, I think it's a great example of actually implementing these things to basically benefit society and humanity as a whole. And I think that's also part of the things that we really need to achieve. Alison, you said earlier that we need more players involved in developing these technologies. I fully agree. Not only that, we also need, as technology developers and engineers, take more responsibility for the societal consequences of the technologies that we actually develop. And in part, that might actually be relatively easy. These skills are in high demand. We can go to places and work with problems very often that actually mean something for society. So I do think that we have the potential to solve these really, really interesting and really, really important problems for society if we just choose to do so.
Does that mean, Daniel, that the society, sort of speaking, has to step up and not rely on the market to sort this out and bring us the latest tech solutions?
Yeah, absolutely. I really do think so. I think we really in society need to view AI as a transformative technology. If we leave it fully to the market, of course, we're going to get a certain type of solutions. We might end up with something that is, in a sense, economically efficient, but perhaps not the best solution for society, our citizens, and solutions that actually support democracy, actively support it. So, yeah, more open solutions, both for research and understanding these things, for transparency, to build services for everyone, and perhaps more solutions developed by the public sector and other types of organizations.
Right now, maybe not that much development, but for sure discussion about regulations from policymakers. What do you say, Alison? How do you draw a line between what is necessary to protect the citizens and what could actually sort of be an obstacle for innovation and economic growth?
So I think the point that Daniel made was fantastic, which is that the market isn't naturally going to lead to the types of solutions that we'd like to see. And so in my mind, when policymakers make the case that we don't want to, prematurely institute regulation that might actually curb or change economic growth, the reality is the capitalist system is already informing the types of applications we're seeing deployed. So if we want to make a concerted effort to have very, more beneficial technology developed, that's something that we need to create with regulation, because an incentive system already exists. If we want to interrupt it, we need to use a different incentive system. And in fact, the existing capitalists, framework in which these AI tools are being developed is actually leading to monopolies in a lot of cases, which is also bad for economic growth. So I'm starting to find it more and more difficult to believe that that is in fact a trade-off that we need to make between economic growth and human rights. I think human rights just allows us for a better framework through which to grow and develop these AI tools.
What do you say about that, Tony?
I think that we have a lot of choices ahead, and we have to, I think about what's important and what's not important. What are the solutions, the problems we want to solve, and what are not? And I think it's important with the global perspective, because these are things that affects all parts of society globally. So the opportunity, we can learn a lot from each other. So I think let's take the moment.
But
and think again.
On the same hand, you told me before that don't go looking for the holy grail.
Yes.
And what do you mean by that?
I think sometimes people or organizations, they want to get the perfect answer that answers everything. I think the world doesn't look like that. I think for a municipality, how can we make things better now? That doesn't mean that you can't think ahead. You can work now and you can work later on. I think an important part is to help organizations with what is AI and what is it not? What can we expect and what should we not expect? And how quick is it going to happen or how quick is it not going to happen? So it's a lot about understanding the time we're living in, and so we have it's an exciting time.
It's an exciting time. Speaking about giving an advice, what kind of advice do you, Daniel, normally give to the ones who ask you?
Well, it's changed in the last few weeks, haven't it, a little bit? Because I think there's a lot of stress right now, right, out in the system, right? Everybody needs to develop AI right at the moment. But just connecting together to what we discussed earlier, basically, an advice is basically keep your eyes on the services, the tools, the solutions that actually provide value and also societal value. Don't just rush into using these tools for whatever you might need to use them for. Think about For example, if you're going to develop AI tools for healthcare, what kind of healthcare system do we actually want, and what kind of tools do we need to build that, and in what places, basically? So that, yes, we can build a lot of stuff today, but keep in mind that we want to build the right things for the future.
Okay, finally, Alison, a very short answer, but please give us something, a description of what gives you hope right now.
I think it's been amazing to see so many advocates for a robust, ethical, end-to-end sort of interdisciplinary AI design process getting so much traction in the mainstream. And so I'm talking about people like Joy Belamwini, Timnit Jabru, Kate Crawford, Sasha Costanza-Schock. Their work is seminal in this space, and it's fantastic to see that that is hopefully galvanizing people about the need for socially responsible AI. We're also seeing fantastic applications of AI in the context of a democracy, AI tools being used by governments, and then also developments on the regulatory side coming from the European Union, but also even from Canada. There's been a number of developments coming out that I think should give us some hope that policymakers are looking to move faster on these types of questions.
So there's reason for being optimistic about the future. I think that's a great way of ending this discussion. Thank you so much, Alison, Daniel, and Tony, and thank you so much for watching. Bye-bye.
There are no holy grails, there are no silver bullets, but we have viewers from 92 countries and never waste a good opportunity to sell to an engaged audience. It is time for a session called Join Sweden, and we will learn about the great possibilities that Sweden has to offer. I would like to welcome Anna Hammarberg, Manager Investment Collaboration at Business Sweden, and Jani Heinonen, who is a Global Head of Invest at Business Sweden. Welcome.
Thank you.
So, a selling tagline, Join Sweden. Why should we join Sweden? Anna?
Join Sweden, yes. Join Sweden to collaborate, to innovate, invest, expand, or just moving here as an individual, studying here, working here. So we promote international companies to come here and help us solve problems and help us become even more competitive in Sweden.
I mean, I'm going to state the obvious question, but why?
Well, we'll try to show you in a few pictures, also about the strengths of Sweden, and why we really think that Sweden is the core of innovation on a global scale also, and we really want to have a lot of more talent and investors, companies to join us in this ecosystem.
Take it away.
Thank you. We will showcase why companies should come here to Sweden to innovate, to collaborate, and join us. And key attributes here are innovation, collaboration, openness, sustainability. We can just begin with looking at this picture. What you see here is a promising energy source, actually. These bacteria generates bio-based hydrogen gas. So this is just ramping up towards industrial scale. And this is just one example of how Swedish industry and research partners work together to find the best solution for tomorrow. Looking at innovation then. We are a country of born innovators. Innovation lies within our DNA, our tradition. From schools, we are encouraged to creative ways, thinking, experiment, reconsider new ideas, and to action them. So if you are a company coming here to Sweden, you will be surrounded by people that always want to find the best solution and always want to improve and innovate. And talking about innovate, it's good to also click to the right picture. And looking at innovate, looking at Sweden's long tradition in actually building world-class competitive companies, from multinationals to tech startups. And the secret here is these companies have really survived due to staying sharp, competitive over time, transforming their business to stay competitive. You might recognize many of these brands. If you then look at openness, Sweden is a truly global economy. 50% of our GDP is generated by export, and 50% of that comes from international companies in Sweden. So around 1/5 of the private workforce is employed in Swedish companies, in international companies in Sweden. And we are also on the 14th place globally in attracting FDI to Sweden. So Jani, what about sustainability?
Well, we have picked sustainability really as one of our key messages here, as it's really happening right now. We're in the middle of this green transition here in Sweden. We really see that this is a great opportunity for more talent, more companies to join Sweden, to be here with us. The fact that we have just a picture of Northvolt at the Gigafactory here from Skellefteå just is a great example of how startup also can be a giga-scale industrial producer also. And we really see that the green transition drives now a lot of new innovation in Sweden, and we really hope to have more international collaborators to be here, to invest in Sweden and work together with us, because the opportunity is here right now. We have a great foundation for this. Obviously, Sweden has for a long time been one of the sustainability leaders globally. So this really gives us the opportunity to say this is the best place in the world for you to join us and to work together with us to really match with the challenges, the big global challenges that we are facing. And of course, we have a lot of great talent already joining us. This is just an example of Leia Deng, a very talented engineer that I met for the first time in Shenzhen in 2019 when we were talking with Senior Technology to bring their battery separator film production to Sweden as part of the cooperation that they also had started with Northvolt. I'm really happy to say that now she's working in Eskilstuna here in Sweden and really enjoying her time and also bringing a lot of her skills and innovation to us here in Sweden. So really great example of how we can cooperate together. And also, obviously, for the different key facts, really sustainability is in the fabric of this nation. So we really want to see more of you who are interested in sustainability to contact us and to see what opportunities you have really to invest and locate here in Sweden also, or just to come here to study or work in one of our leading companies. But how about then, Anna, for the collaboration part?
Sweden is a perfect spot for joint actions. Our culture is built on the idea that together is better. We prioritize spending on R&D, developing collaboration between academia, government, and industry. If we look at Sweden, we have more than 130 research and testing demonstration environments where companies and organizations can verify and upscale their products and services of tomorrow. RISE, the research organization, is Europe's 4th largest institute of its kind. And looking at skills and productive workforce, Sweden hosts some of the world's most renowned universities. We have a very high university enrollment with 45% of all Swedes that have a higher education. And looking at Innovation Champion, we mentioned some figures, but we have among the world's highest spending in R&D. So really, we are a large innovator. And if we look at the tech scale-up scene, we've heard many things about Swedish tech scale-up startups. Stockholm creating the highest number of unicorns per capita in the world after Silicon Valley. So this is just a fertile ground for really creating world-class companies from Sweden. So Jani, what about the business opportunities?
Well, obviously, this is just a short glimpse or teaser, what could be the advantage of joining us here in Sweden. So with this short time, we just want to show you that there's a lot of strengths that we can build on, not only the green transition that I already mentioned, but obviously we have a lot of international clients, investors coming into Sweden now around these core industries of energy, transport, advanced manufacturing, new materials. Creative industry is obviously a very interesting area, life science and digital technologies. So we really see that this is the time to join Sweden, to be here in Sweden and to really co-create together a more sustainable and strong future. So with this, we really welcome you to contact us at Business Sweden and work together with us to be a part of this great journey together.
Thank you for sharing. Thank you for highlighting so many of the positive aspects of Sweden. I feel very proud to live here. I think this brochure was very glossy, and unfortunately we don't have time to talk about maybe the other aspects that are less glossy, but maybe we can do that in the closing remarks. Thank you, Anna. Thank you, Yanni. And we will see you in Sweden. And time for closing remarks. And welcome back to Kajsa.
Hi there.
What an afternoon. 3 exciting days, an innovation bonanza. I don't know how to summarize this, but if we try, we started somewhere with our Minister for Environment and Climate and Energy, talking about the bigger picture, the closing gap, the planetary boundaries, challenges versus possibilities. And the whole first day was the foundations to stand on. How do we build? How do we think about this from a structural perspective? And then moving down to day 2, which was the Swedish way, which is breaking silos, collaborating, cooperating, identifying different stakeholders, and being honest in some of the conflicting goals, some of the conflicting areas, and how do you do that and still move towards a goal, our end vision in the Paris Agreement with confidence. And today we had real impact, real change. We talked about measuring. We've had examples, and then we have had a glossy brochure about Sweden. We've talked about talent and the need for that and the gaps that we have in the Swedish market. And now I need to stop talking and breathe, and I will hand over. Kajsa, what are your impressions of these 3 days and today specifically?
First of all, so much talent in one place, right? And so much will to actually change and make a difference. I think that has been very, very remarkable actually to see. And I also think that one of the things as an agency, a governmental body, that we can do is that we can actually be able to give people a chance, organizations, companies, we can give them a chance to actually take the first steps to creating this impact, to making this big change.
And we spent 3 days trying to describe the secret recipe behind the secret sauce, which cannot be captured in a bottle, right? It seems impossible. So just like Business Sweden just said, you have to come here. I mean, it's, as long as we don't have the actual recipe and it can be replicated, that's what we've got.
And as Tony just said in the previous conversation, there is no holy grail, there is no silver bullet. This is continuous work. There is no failure or success, actually. It is a very broad scope of mitigating all the damage that we've done to the planet for the last 200 years now sit on our shoulders. But we've had engagement from the audience during today as well, haven't we, Joakim?
Yes. So
could you please share?
During the 3 days we've shown speculative design scenarios, and you've shared your thoughts about them in the chat. The short video clips will be available afterwards. And today we had a question. What will democracy look like in 2035? And as always, there's some dystopian and some utopian replies to that. Some said that, sorry, I'm just going to pick up on the...
Find notes.
Exactly. Where are they? Here they are. So we had like, total breakdown, shrinking, a parenthesis.
Shrinking, as in democracy shrinking.
Yes, a parenthesis in history. Or we have the on the more positive note, democracy and human rights will flourish, will be strong in the EU. Or in 2035, democracy is more than just voting. It's about listening, learning, and collaborating with diverse voices and perspective. It's about empowering people to shape their own destiny. I think that was, I mean, it's still ending on a happy note.
And a bit of goosebump. It's important. It's important. But I think we can say thank you, broadly speaking, to everyone that has, over this last 3 days, engaged in the chat and in the Menti.
Yes.
And clearly, we know that a summit like this doesn't necessarily provide any real answers. The question is, how can we give inspiration? How can we share tools? How can we highlight a voice that someone hasn't heard before, build bridges and connect? And obviously, the viewer perspective on this is also very important.
Yes, you have the power to create the future you'd like to have. It's not someone else.
You ended on one of your key mottos. Thank you, Joakim, for being on brand as usual. What do we want to see next year? Because every day matters, and next year will be more important than this year.
Well, more sense of urgency, but also more courage to dare and try.
And more empathy and more collaboration. I love that we touched so much on empathy this time. And also collaboration, of course.
Yeah.
Expand on empathy.
I mean, empathy, what are our responsibilities actually for making this change? How do we collaborate? How do we go away from only competing with one another? How can we join our strength and forces together?
And we talked about failing faster in many sectors, and I think being kind in that failing process, because we don't know the answer. We love IKEA, but this is not an IKEA process. We don't have the steps 1, 2, 3, but we need to test, and we will make mistakes, and therefore we need to stop the urge of pointing fingers as we do that.
And stop the urge to try and predict the future, because we can't, right? We don't have the data about the future. We just know that it's happening exponentially. So we have to be prepared, but don't try to predict. That's a waste of time.
Nothing is constant.
It's not.
There you go. There's more to say, but we will stop there. Thank you, Kajsa. It's been a pleasure. Thank you, Joakim. It's been a pleasure. Thank you, the Swedish Energy Agency, Vinnova and Formas. And I would like to say there will be a fireside chat now with the Director Generals. So stay tuned. There will be Sweden Innovation Days in a year. It's been a wrap. Thank you.
Thank you.